Chapter 48, 45. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Bao Zhuliang begged several times and prepared tens of millions of spiritual jades as a betrothal gift to marry Wang Xinyan, but he was rejected by the divine Nun of the East Sea on the spot. This old woman was as stubborn as the deaf nanny. Facing the divine Nun of the East Sea, Bao Zhuliang couldn't do anything even if he brought out his father Bao Farah, even though he was the city lord of the same rank as Ling Yuanqing in name. He couldn't control the divine Nun of the East Sea. At most, he could restrain the deputy city lord. The divine Nun of the East Sea, who was the deputy dean of the academy, didn't need to pay attention to him. If that was all, Bao Zhuliang had plenty of time to slowly grind. As the saying goes, dripping water can wear away a stone. As long as Wang Xinyan was in the Morning Star Academy, she would never be able to escape from his hands. But now it was different. Suddenly, there was a shocking Lin Yi. Seeing how intimate this guy was with Wang Xinyan, Bao Zhuliang was furious. In his eyes, Wang Xinyan was already his woman. How could he let an outsider touch her? Fortunately, his follower Su Kexing was beside him, and he tried his best to calm him down. Otherwise, Bao Zhuliang would really attack Lin Yi in a rage. The consequences would be unimaginable. Master Bao, please don't be impulsive. As long as this Lin guy leaves, Wang Xinyan will still be in your hands. Don't get yourself into trouble. Su Kexing used all his strength to pull Bao Zhuliang to an empty corner and whispered, "This Lin guy is a disciple of the North Island, and he doesn't look like he'll join our academy. He won't stay here for long. Master Bao, please bear with him for a while." Humph, you know nothing. Wang Xinyan has always had this brat in her heart. That's why she wouldn't agree to me before. No matter what, I have to get rid of this brat. Otherwise, I'll never get Wang Xinyan in this life. Bao Zhuliang said angrily. Ah, so that's how it is. Then, how do we get rid of him? Even Qing Danzi is his disciple. If we aren't careful, we'll end up inviting disaster upon ourselves. When that time comes, even City Lord Bao might not be able to resolve it. Su Kexing frowned. I'll have to ask you this question. You're my most trusted advisor. You have to help me think of a way to get the best of both worlds. Not only will it be able to deal with this Lin, but it won't cause any repercussions. Bao Zhuliang looked at him and said, "In the past, this kind of sinister matter was always handed over to Su Kexing to handle, and every time it was done properly, so Bao Zhuliang trusted him even more. I'll have to think about it." Su Kexing rolled his eyes as he muttered, "The main thing is that this Lin guy's status is a little high. It's difficult to use the methods we use to deal with the other academy disciples on him. This guy is not only Qing Danzi's master, but also the honorary vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. His relationship with the outside world is very solid." Yes, Bao Zhuliang was also a little apprehensive about this. He was not a brainless fool, but he knew how to weigh the strength of the enemy and himself. If he could bully them, he would bully them to death. If they were too strong, he could only retreat, and Lin Yi obviously belonged to the latter. But then again, although this Lin guy has a very powerful background and is also a rare super alchemist, his strength is really not that great. He's just a nascent soul late stage. If you can fight him fair and square, you can kill him in one move. Young Master Bao. TSK. Su Kexing analyzed. Yes, this is the only thing we can use, but I can't just go and challenge him like this, can I? A dignified nascent soul peak expert, like me challenging a nascent soul late stage. Wouldn't that be a joke? I might even be looked down by Wang Xinyan. Bao Zhuliang frowned. A direct challenge definitely won't work. Let's not talk about whether this Lin guy dares to agree. Even if he dares, the Academy's higher-ups will probably come out to stop it. We definitely won't be able to take advantage of it. Su Kexing shook his head. Then hurry up and think of some other way, Bao Zhuoliang urged. Su Kexing pondered for a long while before clapping his hands. I've got it. If we can't deal with this Lin guy ourselves, then we'll have to find a way to kill him with a borrowed knife. It's the auction right now, so let's see if we can do it through the auction. We need to think of a way to make him offend someone powerful. Yes, that makes sense. Hurry up and plan. The next auction is almost here. Bao Zhuoliang nodded. Master Bao, how do we plan this? We'll have to act according to the situation at the auction. Su Kexing shook his head with a bitter smile and scratched his head. But we can do some preparatory work first. Maybe it'll come in handy. All right, we'll do as you say. Bao Zhuoliang nodded. Lin Yi and the two girls didn't know that someone had their eyes on them. The only thing they did for the past few days was play around. It was worth mentioning that Lin Yi remembered Jiang Hahai's request and asked Wang Xinyan to help him ask about the female practitioner called Qinyu. However, the reply he got was that she was in seclusion, so he put it aside for now. It wouldn't be too late to hand the golden soul-gathering pill to her when he came out. The auction was like a storm, and it became the topic of conversation for everyone in the city. As for Lin Yi, who was the main character, he became the hottest topic in Morningstar City. After 3 days, the main event of the Morningstar auction was finally here. The individual auction that everyone had been waiting for had officially begun. Lin Yi brought Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao to the first floor of Morningstar City. As one of the 3 heavyweights of the Academy, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea didn't need any qualifications or spots to participate in this auction. However, she had no intention of coming. In fact, it wasn't just her. Almost all the higher-ups of the Academy, including Ling Yuanqing, Wei Hebei, Qing Danzi, and the others, didn't show up. This was an unspoken rule. After all, no one was a match for them in terms of financial resources. If they participated, the individual auction would be reduced to a battle limited to the VIP boxes, just like the Chamber of Commerce's auction. Then, the auction would be a complete failure. I'm sorry, young hero Lin. The 3 of you still owe an entry spot. The staff suddenly blocked the path of Lin Yi and the others, attracting a large crowd to watch. After all, whether it was Lin Yi, Wang Xinyan, or Huang Xiaotao, they were all the focus of attention, especially Lin Yi, who had been in the limelight 3 days ago. Now, everyone in Morningstar City knew about him. Is that so? Lin Yi and the others looked at each other. Chapter 48-46. He wanted to let Lin Yi and the other 2 in, but he didn't dare to make an exception in front of so many people, or it would be a mess. Haha, now you're acting dumb, aren't you? I'll let you make a fool out of yourself in front of my Wang Xinyan. Bao Zhuoliang and Su Kexing laughed coldly in the crowd. Before they could finish laughing, Lin Yi threw out a rank 7 recover pill and smiled. Is this okay? Yes, of course. The staff nodded. Other treasures had to be appraised by a professional appraiser, but this rank 7 recover pill didn't even have to go through the process. Not to mention whether it was qualified to be auctioned. It could even be used as the finale of the auction. Damn, this bastard really doesn't lack spiritual jade. Bao Zhuoliang was speechless. Even he, the only son of the mayor, wasn't as generous as Lin Yi. They arrived at the familiar auction venue. This time, because the big shots were not participating, there were no VIP boxes set up. However, with the 3 of them status, even if there were no boxes, they would still be able to get a good seat. Ordinary people only dared to watch from afar, and did not dare to approach for fear of causing trouble for themselves. The auction hadn't started yet, and Lin Yi chatted with the 2 girls and drank tea while listening to the people around him. Most of their discussions were about the auction, but Lin E noticed that many people were talking about the same thing. It seemed like there would be an unparalleled trial here soon. What a coincidence! Last time he was in the West Island, he was in the West Island, and now he was in the East Continent for another unparalleled trial. It sounded like it was going to be a great one. Unparalleled trial? What do you mean? Linny couldn't help but ask the two girls. Oh, you're talking about the trial that's going to start in 3 months? It's the legendary road to becoming a Golden Class C magnate in the East Continent, Wang Xinyan explained with a smile. Road to becoming a magnate. Lin Yi was stunned. He subconsciously recalled the giant realm that the ghost had explained to him. Could it be that this trial could produce a super master of the giant realm? Yes, it is said that this is a very special and important trial ground. If you want to advance to the profound ascension stage, you must enter the path of the tyrant, because only there can you trigger the thunder tribulation. Huang Xiaotao said, "That's right. Everyone knows that if you want to break through to the profound ascension realm, you must go through the thunder tribulation. Only during the tempering of the thunder tribulation, when the two types of spirit roots are harmonized, can you have a chance to break through to the profound ascension realm. And it is very difficult to attract the thunder tribulation outside. Without the thunder tribulation, naturally, it is impossible to break through to the profound ascension realm." Wang Xinyan nodded. In other words, only by entering the path of a giant can one attract the lightning tribulation and have a chance to break through to the profound ascension realm. Lin Yi said thoughtfully. This was slightly different from the giant realm he had imagined. At least the opening mountain stage could be considered as the giant realm. But to be honest, the profound ascension stage was the preschool of the giant realm. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the path of the giant realm. Yes, so this auction can be said to be at the right time. Everyone wants to take this opportunity to buy some good things in preparation, so that they won't be caught unprepared during the trial. Especially the 5 Thunder Profound pills that were put up in the last auction. It was simply timely. Huang Xiaotao said with a smile, "Last time, the 5 pills were divided up by the higher-ups of your school. I'm afraid it's very difficult for ordinary disciples to get them. Don't tell me they already have them?" Linny couldn't help but feel strange. That's impossible. The Thunder Xian pill is too rare. I heard that most of the participants don't have it. They can't get it. So in the end, they can only force the thunder tribulation. But it's very risky. If they fail, it's very likely that they will die. Huang Xiaotao shook her head. It's that dangerous? Linny was shocked. To be able to reach the great perfection of the nascent soul stage was said to be 1 in 10,000. No matter who it was very difficult to reach this step. In the end, they had to face such a dangerous thing. The cruelty of the cultivation world was not something ordinary people could understand. If you don't move forward, you will fall back. No one will be willing to stop here. However, even without the protection of the Thunder Xian pill, as long as you take proper precautions, you can still avoid the danger of your life. It's just that failure is inevitable. They can only think of a way to start again next time. I'm afraid that only they can understand the difficulty. Wang Xinyan sighed. Without the Thunder Xian pill, it meant that they could only rely on their own strength to resist the thunder tribulation. In the face of the power of the thunder tribulation, no matter how strong an individual's strength was, it was still insignificant. To be able to rely on various methods to survive was already a fluke. At this time, they still wanted to take the opportunity to break through to the profound ascension stage. Not to say that it was absolutely impossible. It was basically no different from courting death. Under the thunder tribulation, even a slight distraction would lead to death, not to mention breaking through uncontrollably. Therefore, It was already common knowledge in the cultivation world that one must have the protection of the Thunder Xian pill to break through to the profound ascension stage. The number of profound ascension stage experts had always been extremely rare. The ratio of the number of nascent soul stage experts to the great perfection of the nascent soul stage was almost 1/10. The reason for this was that in addition to the difficulty of breaking through to the profound ascension stage, the scarcity of the Thunder Xian pill was the most important part. Yes, after all, there are still more grassroots cultivators in this world. They do not have a deep background, and it is difficult for them to have powerful and unparalleled strength. They can only rely on their own efforts to break through step by step. However, when they finally reach the great perfection of the nascent soul stage, they are blocked by the Thunder Xian pill, unable to go further. This is the tragedy of a grassroots cultivator. Linny shook his head and sighed. He himself was an out-and-out grassroots cultivator. If he hadn't had so many miraculous encounters, he would have had to face this almost unsolvable predicament. As the old saying goes, a single coin stumps a hero. Now, in the cultivation world, it was the same as a single thunder profound pill stumping countless grassroots experts. It really made people sigh. However, this was understandable. There was no such thing as fairness in the cultivation world, especially in the Heaven Stage Island where the strong preyed on the weak. This was even more vividly reflected in the face of a group of cultivators who kept shouting that they were going to defy the heavens. It was already very benevolent for the heavens to only send down the thunder tribulation on the path of the tyrant. But they still wanted fairness? Fair my ass. A bolt of heavenly lightning would blast all the heaven-defying bastards into pieces. That would be fair. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other speechlessly, with the same feeling. If it were not for the fact that they were the disciples of the divine Nun of the Eastern Sea, the two of them would also be grassroots cultivators. They could only rely on themselves to break through everything. How could they have the strength they had today? Right, since the path of the tyrant opens in 3 months. Do you two want to try it? Linny asked. Chapter 48-47. I'm not going. I haven't even reached golden core perfection yet. My priority is to condense my nascent soul. I'm still far from reaching profound ascension. Huang Xiaotao shook her head. What about you, Xinyan? Lin Yi turned to Wang Xinyan. I've discussed it with Master. Master suggested that I give it a try. Even if I don't succeed, I can gain some experience. My life shouldn't be in danger with the Thunder Xian pill. Wang Xinyan said, although her current strength was only at the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, with the special potential of her spongy body, coupled with powerful medicinal pills, it was not impossible for her to reach the peak of the nascent soul realm in 3 months. Of course, if she could not even reach the peak of the nascent soul realm by then there was no need to go on the path of a giant. I see. Linny pondered for a moment and decided there are still 3 months left. We should be able to do it if we work hard. If we're going, then the 3 of us will go together. Huh. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao were shocked, especially Huang Xiaotao, who wasn't prepared at all. She pointed at herself and said, I have to go too? Yes, Xiaotao, you too. Linny nodded seriously. But I haven't even condensed my nascent soul yet. Huang Xiaotao looked at Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan helplessly. She thought that this would be a 2-person world for Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan. She didn't expect that she would be part of it. One had to be at least a master of the peak of Yuanying realm to have a chance to enter the path of a giant. Now, there were only 3 months left. With her strength, it was impossible at all. From the peak of Jindan realm to the peak of Yuanying realm in 3 months, she could not do it even in her dreams, could she? Could it be that you're thinking of Xinyan said thoughtfully. Huang Xiaotao didn't know too much about Lin Yi's abilities, but she'd followed him all the way from the common world. She knew exactly what Lin Yi was capable of. It was impossible for anyone else to do something like this, but Lin Yi was an exception. That's right. Lin Yi smiled mysteriously. So your ability can be used even at nascent soul perfection. That's great. Wang Xinyan was relieved. What are you guys talking about? What kind of ability is it? Huang Xiaotao, on the other hand, was confused. She really couldn't think of any ability that would allow her to enter the path of giants in 3 months. You'll know in the future. Lin Yi and Xinyan looked at each other and smiled. The others weren't too close, but there were too many people here, and it was better to be careful. It'd be troublesome if this ability got out. So mysterious. Huang Xiaotao pouted helplessly, but she did not pursue the matter. Anyway, she would find out sooner or later, so there was no hurry. While the three of them were talking, the curtains of the individual auction finally opened in front of everyone's eyes. This time, the host was still the white-bearded old man from last time. He could be considered a familiar face. Ladies and gentlemen, the individual auction has officially begun. Without further ado, let's get straight to the point. The white-bearded old man changed his style from last time and got straight to the point. Let's take a look at the first item, a pair of Ghost Eye Eagle King Wings. The starting price is 100,000 spiritual jades. As soon as the old man finished speaking, no one showed any expression of surprise. They only whispered to each other. There weren't many people who were really interested in the wings. Lin Yi's eyes lit up as he looked at the pair of majestic black wings that were being carried onto the stage. He didn't know what they were used for, but at the very least, the appearance of this thing was top-notch. 100,000 spirit jades didn't sound cheap, but it was definitely worth it. Why was everyone looking at it with such disdain? 150,000. Lin Yi thought for a moment before opening his mouth. He was rich to begin with, and 3 days ago he had earned more than 80 million spiritual jades. A mere few 100,000 was like a drop in the ocean. Of course, Lin Yi was not a fool. No matter how many spiritual jades he had, he wouldn't throw them away for no reason. The premise of spending money like this was that it caught his eye. The crowd was in an uproar, not because of the 150,000 spiritual jades, but because of Lin Yi himself. Compared to the Ghost Eye Eagle King Wings, this young man with a shocking background was a little more worthwhile. Do you want this pair of Ghost Eye Eagle King Wings? Wang Xinyan asked softly. Not really. It looks nice, but I don't know what it's used for. I'll leave it to fate. Lin Yi shook his head non-committally. To be honest, he really wanted it. The bid just now was just an impulsive one. If someone really wanted to bid, he might not follow. But I heard that the Ghost Eye Eagle King Wings are actually quite useless. It's expensive, but it can only be taken home as a decoration. There's rarely a chance to use it. After all, it's not sharp enough to forge weapons, and it has no other special uses. It can't be used for alchemy either. Huang Xiaotao shook her head. That was indeed the case. If it really had a great use, the rest of the crowd would have been interested. After all, even if they could buy it for 200,000 spiritual jades, it was still useless. Normally, 200,000 spiritual jades were enough to buy a golden nascent condensation pill, but it was not guaranteed to be of superior quality. That was the real treasure. Who would be willing to waste it on a useless exhibit like the Ghost-Eyed Eagle Kingwing? After waiting for a while, a young man in the distance finally opened his mouth to bid. 200,000. Lin Yi shrugged slightly and was about to give up when the ghostly thing suddenly spoke. This thing is not bad. It'll be useful if you buy it. Lin Yi was shocked. He didn't expect the Ghost Eye Eagle Kingwings to be interested in the ghostly thing. He didn't have time to ask why, and immediately said, 300,000. The young man glanced at Lin Yi, hesitated for a moment, and soon gave up bidding. It seemed that his mentality was the same as Lin Yi's. They both had an attitude of take it or leave it. If he could buy it for 200,000, he would buy it. If it was more than that, he would not continue to compete with others. 300,000 going once, 300,000 going twice. Is there any higher bid? The white-bearded old man encouraged. The ghost eye eagle king wings were not an ideal auction item, but it was the first one after all. It was not good to have too much silence. However, the crowd was obviously not stupid. Spending 200,000 spiritual jades for this kind of exhibit item was already the limit. Now that the price had reached 300,000, no one would jump out to compete with Lin Yi unless there was a hole in their brains. Chapter 48:48. Everyone's gazes fell on Lin Yi's head, each and every one of them with a look of disdain as if they were looking at a fool. What they didn't know was that Lin Yi was secretly laughing in his heart. 300,000 spirit jades for the ghost-eyed Eagle King's wing might seem like a fool to others, but this was something that the ghost had specifically asked him to bid for. One could imagine that this was practically picking up a bargain in public. Hey, why isn't that sun guy bidding anymore? I thought he would fight with Lin Yi. What a disappointment. Bao Zhuliang thought to himself. The sun guy that he mentioned was the young man who had just bid 200,000 spirit jades. He was also a second-generation cultivator from the Morning Star Academy, but he was not on good terms with Bao Zhuliang. Young Master Bao, you are thinking too much. Spending more than 300,000 spirit jades for this pair of ghost-eyed Eagle King's wings. You are also reluctant. That sun guy is not a fool, right? Spending so much spirit jades to buy a decoration, his old man will definitely break his legs. Su Kexing shook his head and laughed. That's true. Lin Yi is stupid enough to spend 300,000 spirit jades for this thing. It is not easy to find someone more stupid than him. Bao Zhuliang thought for a while and laughed. Although he did not make an enemy for Lin Yi, seeing Lin Yi waste so many spirit jades was not a bad feeling. Don't be anxious. The best is yet to come. When they encounter the real good stuff, I have already prepared everything. Young Master Bao, just wait and see. Su Kexing laughed confidently. Okay, I will wait. Bao Zhuliang patted him on the shoulder. He had a lot of trust in this little brother that he had played with since childhood. At least among the circle of second-generation heirs that he had come into contact with, Su Kexing was definitely the one with the best brains. The second item is the venomous infant dagger. It is an invincible godly weapon. What is even rarer is that it is smeared with a rare poison. Even an original infant stage expert would die upon touching it. The starting price is 500,000 spirit jades. The white-bearded old man said as he held up the dagger and showed it to the crowd. Unlike the awkward silence just now, everyone's interest was immediately piqued. Bidders were everywhere, and the price was raised in an instant. This dagger seems a bit strange. Lin Yi took a closer look at it. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary dagger, but when he used his divine sense to sense it carefully, he found that there was an extremely evil aura attached to it. It didn't feel like an ordinary poison, but more like an evil curse. It really is. My intuition tells me that this thing was raised with fresh blood, and it's the blood of an original soul stage master at that. The evil energy on it is unimaginable, and I'm afraid it's already turned into poison. No wonder even an original soul stage master couldn't handle it. Xinyan frowned. All of her mental cultivation methods and martial techniques came from the divine, none of the East Sea, so she was extremely sensitive to the evil aura. In comparison, Huang Xiaotao had not been initiated for very long, so she was unable to sense it immediately. 2 million. A ferocious-looking, middle-aged man shouted as he stared at the nascent venom dagger. With such a weapon in hand, any nascent soul expert would have to take a few steps back. The killing power of this dagger was self-evident, let alone a mere 2 million spirit jades. It would be worth it no matter how many spirit jades he spent. 2,300,000 spirit jades. Not far away, a woman with a sinister look on her face refused to budge. Her gaze was even more intense than the middle-aged man's. In her eyes, this dagger was like her life weapon, an existence that was tailor-made for her. It wasn't just these two people. There were a few others who were also raising the price with all their might. Judging from the atmosphere, it was obvious that none of them were people to be trifled with, now that they were competing against each other for a nascent venom dagger. The atmosphere in the hall was so tense that it was hard to breathe. Bao Zhuliang's gaze was always on Lin Yi, and he was instantly disappointed when he saw that Lin Yi was completely uninterested in the dagger. Truth be told, even a nascent soul stage master like him was interested in this nascent venom dagger. How could this guy, a mere nascent soul late stage, remain unmoved? It wasn't like he was lacking in spirit jades. With Lin Yi's wealth, if he really made a move, no one present would be able to outbid him. In that case, those who were also determined to obtain the nascent venom dagger would definitely target him. This was in line with Bao Zhuliang's intention of using someone else to do his dirty work. However, now that Lin Yi wasn't making a move, Bao Zhuliang's hopes were dashed. If he had heard of Lin Yi's achievements in Soaring Cloud Academy, he would know that this kind of hope was nonsense from the very beginning. How could someone who was able to fight against someone as strong as Lung Rufin be interested in a mere nascent venom dagger? No matter how sinister the dagger was, it was only effective against nascent soul experts. If Lin Yi wanted to deal with a nascent soul expert, would he even need to use poison? After a stalemate, the nascent venom dagger finally fell into the hands of the sinister-looking woman and was sold for a price of 3.8 million spirit jades. Compared to the first item, the ghost-eyed eagle king's wing, this price was already extremely high. However, the next few items were sold for a price of 3 to 4 million spirit jades. After all, in the eyes of everyone present, these items were all rare and valuable items. This price was not a loss at all. However, what made Bao Zhuliang speechless was that in the face of so many tempting items, Lin Yi didn't even look at them. He didn't even open his mouth, let alone start a feud with anyone. Not only Bao Zhuliang, but even Su Kexing, who was originally quite calm, couldn't keep his cool. He couldn't help but say, "Isn't this guy's standards too high? Any one of these items can greatly increase a nascent soul expert's battle prowess. How can he not be interested in them? What should we do? If this guy doesn't take the bait, no matter what, how are we going to kill him with a borrowed knife?" Bao Zhuliang felt a headache coming on. "Young Master Bao, don't panic. Although this guy's stubbornness is surprising, we still have a backup plan. Young Master Bao, don't forget about that thing." Su Kexing laughed. "How could I forget? I've put in a lot of effort." Bao Zhuliang's face was full of pain. This item was something he had taken out after listening to Su Kexing's plan. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to kill Lin Yi, he wouldn't have taken it out normally. After all, this item was very rare. You can't catch the wolf without risking the child. Young Master Bao, you've seen it for yourself. That Lin Yi guy doesn't care about these items. If we don't put in a lot of effort, it won't be easy to get him to take the bait. If he doesn't take the bait, there's nothing we can do." Su Kexing smiled helplessly. Chapter 48-49. That's right. No matter how high his vision is, no matter how strong his background is, at the end of the day, strength is king. Plus, He is a super alchemist himself. To him, this item is the same as increasing his strength. Unless his brain is flooded with water, there is no way he wouldn't be tempted. As long as he is tempted, everything else will be easy. Su Kushing said confidently, "Brat, you have to make careful arrangements. I've invested so much. If I can't create a few powerful enemies for him in the end, I won't forgive you." Bao Zhuo said with a guilty conscience. The only reason he took out this item was to kill someone with a borrowed knife. If he couldn't defeat Lin Yi in the end, and Lin Yi won it, then no matter how high the price was, Bao Zhuoyang would be depressed to the point of vomiting blood. After all, this item was almost as rare as the Xian Thunder Dan. Usually, no matter how many spiritual jades he spent, he might not be able to buy it. Don't worry. I've already arranged everything. This enemy is definitely powerful enough. Even if Lin Yi provokes him, he won't be able to walk away unscathed. I can guarantee that he will definitely fight. That person is not a reasonable person. He. Su Kushing smiled mysteriously. Good. Seeing his expression, Bao Zhuoyang was instantly filled with confidence. Because every time this guy revealed this expression, he had never failed. This time was no exception. Next is the 8th item, the yuan-raising demonic golden grass. The white-bearded old man hadn't even finished speaking when the entire audience was in an uproar. The response was much more enthusiastic than all the previous auction items combined. And this time, it was as Bao Zhuoyang and Su Kushing had expected. Lin Yi, who had been indifferent all this while, had his eyes lit up. Lin Yi was an alchemist himself. He was no stranger to the yuan-raising demonic golden grass. This was because this was the main ingredient for the vitality-raising Dan. Its rarity was comparable to the thunder mystic Ratan, although the spiritual Dan was only effective for original infant stage cultivators. It was still a 7th realm Dan. Its effects were very simple. If an original infant stage cultivator were to take one, they would be able to level up by 1 level to an original infant stage cultivator. This was undoubtedly a holy pill that they yearned for even in their dreams. Furthermore, it was an enhanced version of the condensing infant pill. One has to know that the condensing infant pill only had miraculous effects when forming the original infant stage. Once one entered the original infant stage, although it was possible to continue using it as an experience pill, the effects would be extremely limited. It could even be said to be sloppy and a waste of resources. If one wanted to rely on the golden nascent gathering pill to level up, it would be impossible to do so without at least 8 to 10 pills. However, the vitality enhancing pill was different. Regardless of whether one was an early nascent soul realm expert or a late nascent soul realm expert, as long as one pill was used, one would be able to directly level up. However, it could not replace the effect of the gathering nascent soul golden pill that could break the barrier. If the golden core perfection dared to take the yuan cultivating pill, it would basically result in an instant death. Just as Bao Zhuoyang and Su Kushing had speculated, there was no way Lin Yi wouldn't be able to do nothing about this. In reality, as long as one's capability wasn't at the original level, any original leveled cultivator, regardless of their background, wouldn't be able to remain unmoved. After the evaluation, this golden, nascent soul golden grass can be divided into 5 portions. In other words, it can only be used to brew 5 vitality-enhancing pills. The starting price is 1 million spiritual jades. The bearded elder announced, 2 million. Lin Yi opened his mouth and immediately doubled the starting price. 2 million spiritual jades to buy 1 golden, nascent, soul golden grass was a little high. After all, this wasn't a ready-made vitality-enhancing pill. However, in Lin Yi's hands, this thing was no different from a vitality-enhancing pill. Especially at a time like this, It didn't matter how many spiritual jades he spent. After all, millions of spiritual jades were nothing more than numbers to Lin Yi. Now that he had the opportunity to buy the golden nascent soul golden grass, he was already making a profit. At this moment, Xinyan suddenly made a sound of surprise. She whispered to Lin Yi and Huang Xiaotao, "I think I've seen this golden nascent soul golden grass before." Huh. Lin Yi paused. "Right, I remember now. Isn't this Wu Liang Bao's?" Huang Xiaotao slapped her forehead and remembered as well. Wu Liang Bao. Lin Yi paused again. Who would come up with a name like that? Seeing Lin Yi's confused expression, Xinyan smiled and explained, "Wu Liang Bao is our nickname. His real name is Bao Zhuliang, the only son of Morningstar City's city lord, Bao Farah." As she spoke, she pointed at a table in the distance. It was where Bao Zhuliang and Su Kexing were sitting. Lin Yi glanced at them, and his heart jumped. He'd noticed that these two had been staring at him since the beginning, but he didn't take it to heart. After all, he was someone who stood at the heart of the struggle. There were many people who paid attention to him, but not as much as these two. Lin Yi couldn't help but speculate that these two had ulterior motives and weren't just here to watch the show. Speaking of which, how do you know this golden nascent soul golden grass belongs to him? Lin Yi asked curiously. Not revealing one's wealth was the most basic rule in the cultivation world. No matter who obtained the golden nascent soul golden grass, they wouldn't go around announcing it to the world. Being a spoiled brat didn't mean you were stupid, unless there was something wrong with your head. That's because Bao Wuliang took it out for us to see. He even pretended to give it to Big Sister Xinyan. Even an idiot could see through his dirty thoughts. Guess what Big Sister Xinyan said in the end? Huang Xiaotao kept them in suspense. What did she say? Lin Yi's interest was immediately piqued. He looked at the blushing Wang Xinyan with a faint smile. This girl had a gentle and kind personality. He really couldn't guess how she would react to a spoiled brat like Bao Zhuliang. Big Sister Xinyan only said 3 words at that time, but that toad Bao Wuliang was so scared that he turned around and ran away. Because she said, Huang Xiaotao kept everyone in suspense before revealing the answer. Deaf nanny. Lin Yi smiled. This deaf nanny definitely couldn't hear it. He didn't expect Bao Zhuliang to be so cowardly. However, he really had to find an opportunity to thank the deaf nanny. If it weren't for her, not only Wang Xinyan, but Huang Xiaotao would also be in trouble. The East Continent College had no lack of spoiled brats. It would be strange if they didn't come to bother the 2 girls. As the 3 of them spoke, there were already several people bidding. The price of the golden nascent soul golden grass quickly rose to 2,700,000 spirit jades. Chapter 4850. After all, to those cultivators who were at the peak of the advanced stage of the original level, obtaining an essence-raising Dan at this time was like gaining a precious ticket to becoming a tycoon. 3 million. Lin erased the price again without hesitation, and all the competitors' eyelids twitched. Compared to the others, they were all rich, but in front of Lin Yi, they were all fake rich. Only he was a true tycoon. 3,050,000. An old man with snow-white hair clenched his teeth and said, Lin Yi glanced at him. This was a cultivator at the peak of the advanced stage of the original level. It seemed like he was making a last stand for himself. Though cultivators lived a long life, getting too old would make them lose their drive, and it would be hard for them to make any more breakthroughs. If he couldn't break through to the Xian realm this time, he would probably never be able to do so again. Thinking about it made one sigh. However, Lin Yi would not pity an outsider who had nothing to do with him. He had to get this qi raising golden grass today. Without blinking, he said, 3,200,000. The white-haired old man's expression froze as he looked at the calm Lin Yi. His body trembled as he tried to open his mouth, but he couldn't make a sound. He could only sit back down with a desolate look on his face. 3,500,000 was his limit. He already had to borrow money from others. He could not afford to pay more than that, let alone the fact that there was no way he could win against the wealthy Lin Yi. Even if he managed to get his hands on the chi-raising Dan, it would be useless. Finding someone to help him with the essence-raising Dan would require a lot of spiritual jades. 3,300,000. Just as the white-haired old man retreated in fear, a young woman immediately took over from the other side. This was a second-generation cultivator of the academy. She was much more confident than the white-haired old man, and she was also determined to get the yuan-raising demon golden grass. Bao Zuoliang and Su Kexing were overjoyed to see this scene. They'd released the chi-raising golden grass just for this. As long as Lin Yi and these people didn't give way to each other, they'd end up fighting each other sooner or later. They'd be enemies even if they didn't want to, but all of this was secondary. The one Su Kexing made for Lin Yi hasn't even spoken yet. Remember, that person was even more desperate for the chi-raising golden grass than Lin Yi. 3,800,000. Lin Yi looked at the woman, and the number that came out of her mouth shocked everyone. This wasn't a ready-made chi-raising pill. It was just a stalk of chi-raising golden grass. Was there a need to ask for such a high price? What could they do? Rich people were always stubborn. 3,900,000. The young woman looked at Lin Yi angrily and hesitated for a while before saying, 4,200,000. Lin Yi still had a calm expression and did not even look at her. With his wealth, he was destined to be invincible in this kind of situation where there were no big shots. Even the most powerful second-generation cultivators were like floating clouds in front of him. In the past, they were the ones smashing others to death with spirit jades. Now, it was time for them to experience what it felt like to be smashed alive with spirit jades. As expected, the young woman choked. Her face turned green and white as she glared at Lin Yi. After hesitating for a long time, she finally sat back down. Although it was not that her family could not take out so many spirit jades with the price of the Dan of Raising Dan, even if she got the chi-raising golden grass, she would definitely be scolded by the elders in her family. All of her spirit jades were provided by her family. She did not dare to squander them like Lin Yi. Looks like no one is going to compete with you now. Wang Xinyan smiled. After all, she had followed the divine, none of the Eastern Sea. Her knowledge was far greater than that of regular students. 4,200,000 spirit jades was enough to buy a ready-made Dan of Raising Dan, aside from people like Lin Yi, who had too much spirit jades to spend. No one else was willing to compete with him. I don't think it will be that simple. Lin Yi shook his head. He had been paying attention to one person throughout the entire auction. It was not Bao Zuoliang, who Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao had mentioned, but the red-haired old man who sat boldly in the center of the hall. Lin Yi had originally thought that Qing Danzi, his cheap disciple, was strange enough. He did not think that he would run into someone even stranger today. Not only was his hair and beard fiery red, but even his face was abnormally red. This was no longer the Heaven Island version of Lord Guan Yu. He was like the Lord of the Fire God, who had descended into the mortal world. Of course, Lin Yi did not pay attention to this red-haired old man purely because of his strange appearance. More importantly, this person's presence and strength were the best in the entire hall. Even if he sat there silently, he still had a strong sense of existence. This was because this was a true mountain-opening giant, and he had never held back his aura. Under normal circumstances, any mountain opening stage tycoon should be like Ling Yuanqing and the other big shots of the academy and take the initiative to avoid arousing suspicion. After all, at their level, it was very difficult for a personal auction to have anything good that could catch their eye. Moreover, as a tycoon, he should have the airs of a tycoon. If he casually came out to compete with the younger generation, there would be no prestige left. But Linny did not know what this red-haired old man was planning by appearing here. He had never opened his mouth before, but one thing was for sure. Since he was here, he must have an ulterior motive. Soon, the red-haired old man noticed that Lin Yi was glancing at him intentionally or unintentionally. He immediately turned his head and looked back. There was no special expression on his face, but the terrifying aura from the giant of the mountain opening period still made Lin Yi's heart jump. Lin Yi couldn't help but think to himself, was this guy really the Lord of the Fire God? Being stared at by him like that made me feel like I was about to burn up. That person is called Lu Dachang. He's not one of the higher-ups in the academy, but a guest elder that the city Lord Bofara invited with a high price. I heard that he's a mountain opening master, and his position in the city lord's manor is only slightly lower than Bofara's. He's one of the top 3 giants. Xinyan reported quietly, a mountain opening giant from the city lord's manor? Then what's he doing here? The bad feeling in Lin Yi's heart grew stronger. I don't know. Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other and shook their heads. They had only heard of this person and only heard some rumors. They didn't know much about him. The whole place was silent. The people who coveted the yuan raising demon golden grass were all frightened by Lin Yi. The price had already been raised to 2 million. Everyone wanted to bid, but they didn't have the strength to do so. They could only watch helplessly. At this moment, Lin Yi's bad feeling became reality. Lu Dachang suddenly spoke. 5 million. The others didn't have enough capital, but he was a mountain opening master. This amount of spirit jade was more than enough. Chapter 48:51. 6 million. Lu Dachang seemed to be a rich man. If an opening stage giant like him couldn't compete with a junior, he would be laughed at to death. Even so, some people noticed that this guest giant's mouth twitched unnaturally. The whole place was silent. At this time, no one could jump out to mess things up. The yuan raising demon golden grass could only fall into the hands of 2 people. It was either Lin Yi or Lu Dachang. The others could only watch from afar. Not bad, not bad. Messing with Lu Dachang. This old bastard. This Lin is dead, for sure. Bao Zhuliang almost laughed out loud. Although Lu Dachang was on the same side as his father, he didn't have any respect for him, the young city lord. After the quarrel with his son last time, this old bastard even wanted to teach him a lesson. Luckily, Bao Farah saved him in time, or else he would have suffered greatly. Bao Zhuliang didn't like Lu Dachang, but he was an opening stage giant after all. Even his father had to bow down to him. No matter how unhappy he was, he could only pinch his nose. But now, he made this old bastard deal with Lin Yi. No matter who was unlucky, he would be very happy. This was simply a stroke of genius. Since I have to borrow someone's knife to kill, I naturally have to borrow the sharpest knife. No matter how I think about it, I can't find a knife sharper than Lu Dachang in Qinqing City. Su Kexing couldn't help but be proud of himself. To deal with someone with a background like Lin Yi, ordinary opponents were not enough. Profound Ascension Stage was far from enough. At the very least, they had to be opening stage giants. But opening stage giants were not so easy to use. Only a fiery giant, like Lu Dachang, could be used. Right. How did you determine that this old bastard would take the bait? Bao Zhuliang suddenly asked. Although the yuan-raising demon golden grass was rare and useful to an opening stage giant like Lu Dachang, what use could it have? Hee, young Master Bao, did you forget Lu Xiaozhong, who argued with us last time? He is now at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, and has long announced that he wants to participate in the path of a magnate. As long as the news of the essence-raising devil golden grass is spread with the old bastard's protective personality, it would be strange if he could endure it. Su Kexing said with a mischievous smile. The Lu Xiaozhong he mentioned was Lu Dachang's son. So that's how it is. No wonder you have nothing to do in front of Lu Xiaozhong 2 days ago. It turns out that you deliberately leaked information to him. It's so bad, but I like it. Bao Zuoliang laughed. Young Master Bao, I didn't just leak the information to him. I also purposely emphasized Lin Yi's wealth. In short, he can't compete with Lin Yi with just the amount of spirit jades he has. Unless he gets his father to step in, and he can't do it according to the rules. Hee. Su Kexing smirked as he took credit for himself. Well done, well done. Let's wait and watch the show. Bao Zuoliang was very satisfied with his right-hand man. The reason why they called Lu Dachang an old bastard was because he didn't do things according to the rules. Moreover, he was an unscrupulous person. It was impossible for him to follow the rules and admit defeat like the others. As the two were talking, Lin Yi had already completely gone against the mountain-opening magnate, Lu Dachang. According to their expectations, 7 million. 5 million. Lu Dachang still didn't plan to give in, but everyone could see that he couldn't hold on any longer. For an essence-raising devil golden grass to such an exaggerated price, everyone felt like they were dreaming. One had to know that even the rarest grade 7 medicinal pellet, the profound thunder pellet, was only worth this much at most. A normal essence-augmenting pellet would be sold for more than 5 million, and this was just a stock of essence-augmenting demon golden grass. At this moment, there was only one thought in everyone's mind. These two people are crazy. 8 million. Lin Yi didn't care if the opponent was a mountain-opening magnate or not. Since it was an auction, whoever had more spiritual jades would be awesome. No matter how strong he was, he could only hold it in. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Dachang couldn't help but choke. It was true that he was a mountain-opening magnate, but he was only a guest expert of the city lord's mansion. He wasn't a leader like the city lord. How could he have so many spiritual jades to squander? However, those who knew a little wouldn't think that he would let it go just like that. As expected, Lu Dachang's originally ferocious and powerful aura was unleashed. He stared at Lin Yi fiercely and scolded, "Motherf ***, who is so blind to oppose Grandpa Lu. Are you looking for death? I'll leave my words here today. This essence-raising devil golden grass is mine. Whoever dares to obstruct me, don't blame Grandpa Lu for turning hostile." When Lin Yi heard this, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. To be honest, competing with a mountain-opening magnate was already very stressful. He didn't expect it to be such a shameless old bastard. No wonder he had a very bad premonition from the start. This time, his premonition came true. Even if he was richer than the opponent didn't play by the rules and directly used force. What could he do? In front of absolute strength, all schemes were a joke. Similarly, no matter how many spiritual jades he had, it was just a joke. I heard from Master that he is as boorish as his name. He is famous for being rude and unreasonable. Also, he is only a guest of the city lord's mansion. He doesn't care about the rules. Even if he breaks the rules occasionally, City Lord Bao and Dean Ling can't do anything about it. We have to be careful. Wang Xinyan pulled on Lin Yi's sleeve and reminded him softly. Lin Yi nodded without batting an eyelid. He had a headache looking at this guest with red hair. If the other party was a mountain opening stage expert from outside, he might not dare to be so unbridled in Morningstar City's territory. However, he was a guest here, and there was no way he could argue with him. But no matter what, Linny wouldn't give up so easily. He immediately retorted, "I can understand that you want the Yuan raising devil golden grass, but this is an auction. You have to follow the rules of the auction. If you can't afford to play, then don't play. Do you really want to destroy the fairness of the auction?" When Lin Yi said this, the crowd was in an uproar. They all knew that Lin Yi's background was unfathomable, but they didn't expect him to be so daring. He dared to go against a mountain opening magnate in front of so many people. What they didn't know was that Lin Yi's courage was trained. He was able to escape from the West Mountain Old Master when he was only at the Golden Core stage. Now that he was at the late nascent soul stage and had all sorts of statuses protecting him, he really didn't have to be afraid of this mountain opening magnate. Chapter 4852. Don't talk about useless stuff. I'm telling you, I don't understand a single thing you're saying. Lu Dachong didn't have the demeanor of a big shot at all. Acting shamelessly was a common occurrence, or else there wouldn't be so many people secretly calling him an old bastard. He curled his lips and said, "Humph, my son needs this grass to refine pills. Just tell me if you're going to let it go or not." Everyone shook their heads, speechless. What was shamelessly, shamelessly? This was shamelessly, shamelessly, shamelessly right in front of you, leaving you with no way to retaliate at all. The worst part was that this old bastard was a mountain opening stage powerhouse. Other than the other mountain opening stage powerhouses, the others didn't even have the right to stand up and talk to him. His fist was the biggest here, so naturally, only he had the final say. Wang Xingyan and Huang Xiaotao frowned and looked at each other. Both of them were thinking of the same thing. Should they sneak out and ask their master to come and save the day? Although the divine, none of the Eastern Sea didn't have much control over this old bastard. She was still a mountain opening stage powerhouse after all. At the very least, he wouldn't dare act shamelessly like this. His tone right now was simply infuriating. "So what if I'm bullying you? Do you dare hit me, weakling?" If it were anyone else, they would most likely admit defeat, but the two girls knew very well the pride in Lin Yi's bones. He definitely wouldn't lower his head so easily. It was fine if it was just a verbal fight, but if they really started fighting, he would be at a great disadvantage. Unexpectedly, under the two girls' worried gazes, Lin Yi was the one who laughed instead. He looked at Lu Dachong calmly and said, "Forgive me for asking, but if you buy the yuan-raising demon golden grass, who are you going to find to refine pills with?" "Nonsense. Of course I'm going to find Qing Danzi. Who else can I find?" Lu Dachong curled his lips without hesitation. The yuan-raising pill was a 7th-rank pill after all. Regular alchemists wouldn't be able to refine it at all. The only one who could do so in Morningstar City was Qing Danzi. "Oh, that's my disciple. I'll go back and tell him not to accept your job. Just wait and watch." Linny smiled faintly. Everyone was instantly amused. Just now, when they saw Lu Dachong making things difficult, they thought that Lin Yi was about to be unlucky. But now that they thought about it, Lin Yi's disciple was already on equal footing with Lu Dachong. It was hard to say who would have the best laugh in this conflict. Lu Dachong couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He paused for a moment before sizing up Lin Yi again. Lin Yi could be said to be a household name in Morningstar City. Even if he hadn't seen him before, he would have heard of him. He quickly asked, "You're that Lin Yi?" "That's right. Do you still want to rob me, like this?" Lin Yi looked at him with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. His path to becoming a major figure was right around the corner. If he couldn't refine, the yuan-raising demon golden grass into yuan-raising pills as soon as possible after buying it. Its effects would definitely be greatly reduced. In particular, this visiting chamberlain had to act shamelessly in front of everyone to obtain the yuan-raising demon golden grass. He had to consider this carefully. For the first time, Lu Dachang showed an expression of hesitation and difficulty. Although he was a fool, he wasn't completely stupid. With Lin Yi's identity, even if he was a major figure in the mountain establishment stage, there was nothing he could do about it. There was a limit to acting shamelessly. It was fine if he only wanted to steal the yuan-raising demon golden grass, but if he dared to make a move against Lin, not to mention the attitude of the city lord, the academy would definitely not be able to get away with it. Qing Danzi, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, and even Lin Yuanqing would have to stand against him because of this. That would not be fun. However, he also had to get the yuan-raising demon golden grass for his son. Right now was the most critical period for Lu Xiaozhong's rise. If he missed this opportunity, it would be very difficult for him to break through to profound immortal in the future. This kind of thing could not be delayed. Lu Dachang couldn't help but be in a dilemma. He looked at the yuan-raising demon golden grass on the stage, then looked at the calm and composed Lin Yi, not knowing what to do. How about this? I don't want the yuan-raising demon golden grass anymore. I'll just give it to you, Lin Yi suddenly said. Not only was Lu Dachang dumbfounded, but everyone else was also dumbfounded. He just had the upper hand. Why did he give it away in the blink of an eye? Could it be that this Lin Yi was afraid of the old bastard's revenge? Really? Lu Dachang looked at Lin Yi suspiciously. Of course. Not only can I give you the yuan-raising demon golden grass, I can also promise to personally refine it for you. As long as you bring this yuan-raising demon golden grass to me, I'll guarantee you an energy-raising pill. Lin Yi smiled. Ah, that's great. Thank you so much. Lu Dachang's expression instantly changed. If his face was too red, his change speed would be like a chameleon's. His attitude immediately changed 180 degrees. Master Lin, you really are a great person. Little Lu, admire you so much. Thank you so much. Then, Master Lin, I'll come find you in a bit. He really wasn't stupid at all. Lin Yi was the legendary Absolute Dan. Finding him to refine pills was much more reliable than finding Qing Danzi. Otherwise, why would Qing Danzi be his disciple? Although this yuan-raising demon golden grass was enough for 5 sets of materials, that was only in theory. In reality, it didn't count at all. If he went to find Qing Danzi, if he was lucky, he might be able to refine 2 pills. If he was unlucky, he might not even get one. That was too risky. But Lin Yi was different. Absolute Dan meant that the yuan-raising demon golden grass was in his hands. At that time, he would definitely be able to refine 5 energy-raising pills. Although Lin Yi only gave him 1, it was enough for him. After all, his son was only 1 level away from the original soul stage. More would be useless. On one hand, he might be wasting his money, but on the other, he would definitely get 1. Even an idiot would know what to choose. And Lu Dachang wasn't an idiot. Lu Dachang ran over to Lin Yi's side, trying to curry favor with him. Everyone present, including Lin Yi, was completely dumbfounded. He'd just been calling him Grandpa Lu, but the moment he said he'd refine pills for him, he turned into little Lu. Did he even have the moral integrity of a founding stage giant? Bao Zhuoliang and Su Kexing hid in a corner and looked at each other, too shocked to speak for a long while. They'd meticulously planned out such a good plan, and Lin Yi had just said a few words, and he just ruined it all? As for Lin Yi, he couldn't help but smile at Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao. Those who could become founding stage giants really weren't easy to deal with. This Lu Dachang's IQ wasn't low at all, and his vulgarity was just an act. To put it bluntly, it was just a cover for him to take advantage of others. Chapter 48:53. Lin Yi and Lu Dachang settled the rules in front of everyone. The white-bearded elder on the stage finally heaved a sigh of relief. Even if he was the auction host invited by the academy, he was helpless against an unreasonable scoundrel like Lu Dachang. If Lu Dachang really snatched the yuan raising demon golden grass away, it would really be a pain in the ass. Fortunately, this young man was experienced enough to settle Lu Dachang with a few simple words. The younger generation will surpass us in time. The white-bearded elder sighed in his heart as he carefully asked Lu Dachang, "Then this yuan-raising demon golden grass belongs to you?" The price just now was 8 million spirit jades. Strictly speaking, this method still put him in a difficult position. After all, if the two of them did this, then what was the point of him being the auction host? But there was no other way. This was the best solution. This was much better than Lu Dachang snatching it away. Damn it, this brat escaped this calamity. Bao Zuoliang and Su Kexing looked at each other speechlessly. The only thing that could comfort them was 8 million spirit jades. This price had already far exceeded the yuan raising demon golden grass itself. Although they didn't manage to scam Lin Yi, they still made a huge profit, and the result was not bad. In the end, Lu Dachang's next words made their hearts tremble. This old bastard glared at them and suppressed them with the aura of a bastard. "Yes, your grandma." Master Lin backed out, "So we have to bid again. What happened before doesn't count. Don't try to bluff your Grandpa Lu." The white-bearded elder almost spat blood on his face. He had seen many scoundrels, but this was the first time he had seen a scoundrel to this extent. How could there be such a thing in the world? "What? You have an opinion?" Lu Dachang glared at him with an unfriendly expression. After all, he was an opening stage giant. This aura was really not something an ordinary person could withstand. We have to first ask the seller for his opinion." The white-bearded elder hesitated for a moment before saying, "Under normal circumstances, of course they couldn't do this. Otherwise, a good auction ceremony would become a big joke. But he was, after all, an auction host that was temporarily invited. He wasn't stupid enough to offend an opening stage giant for a temporary job." "Humph, Grandpa Lu will kill whoever dares to refuse." Lu Dachang fearlessly threatened the entire crowd, then squinted his eyes and asked, "Stop dilly-dallying, tell me who it is." The white-bearded old man had no choice but to quickly check the list of bidders. His gaze swept across everyone's faces, and finally he pointed at Bao Zuoliang, who was hiding in the corner. Holy shit! Bao Zuoliang's face darkened when he saw the white-bearded old man throw a hot potato onto his head. After being betrayed by the white-bearded old man, he instantly became the focus of everyone present. Now, everyone knew that he was the master of the yuan nourishing demon golden grass. Damn it, if I had known earlier, I would have posted it anonymously. At this moment, Bao Zuoliang felt as if 10,000 alpacas were galloping through his heart. Great, not only did he fail to trick Lin Yi, but he was also going to lose his life. "Oh, so it's you?" The corner of Lu Dachang's mouth curled up, harboring malicious intentions. Last time, his son had suffered a setback at the hands of this brat, and he had even caused a huge ruckus because of this. Who would have thought that they would meet again today? Senior Lu. Bao Zuoliang could only bite the bullet and squeeze out an incomparably ugly smile. "Since we're acquaintances, then it's easy to talk. Brat Bao, tell me what you want. Do you want Grandpa Lu to feel your pulse?" Lu Dachang stared at Bao Zuoliang and sneered. Although Bao Zhuoliang was the son of his immediate superior, he didn't care about this kind of **T relationship. Bao Fala had only invited him to be a guest elder because of his strength, not because of a favor. Moreover, there was no such thing as a friendship between them. Instead, there was a slight grudge because of his son. This, Bao Zhuoliang's scalp went numb under his stare, and his smile was even uglier than a cry. If he really let this old bastard feel his pulse, then his pulse would definitely be broken by him. This old bastard definitely didn't have any demeanor of a big shot, and he was very ruthless. Say it, stop dilly-dallying. Are you willing or not? Lu Dachang urged with a displeased expression. When Linny heard this, he almost burst out laughing. If this was in the secular world, he would think that this was a wedding. Unfortunately, the people in front of him were not a man and a woman who were about to enter the marriage hall, but a red-haired old man and a hedonistic young master. Bao Zhuoliang shrunk his head and didn't know how to answer for a moment. He turned to look at Su Kushing for help, but how would a small character like Su Kushing dare to stand out against Lu Dachang? If it was his old man Bao Fala, then it might be possible, but at this moment, there were only the two of them, and Lu Dachang would definitely eat them up. Fine. In the end, Bao Zhuoliang could only grit his teeth and nod. Lu Dachang had just said that he would kill anyone who didn't agree, so how would he dare to say no? Did you hear that? Hurry up and start again. Lu Dachang urged the white-bearded old man, and didn't forget to add in the end, I'll kill anyone who dares to fight with me. Let's see who dares to go against Grandpa Lu. The faces of everyone present all darkened, and they looked at each other. Was this still AF * King auction? This was daylight robbery. Originally, when Linny took the initiative to withdraw from the competition, the others still had some thoughts of going all out, but Lu Dachang's words immediately made them shrink back. Even someone with a background like Bao Zhuoliang could only obediently take a loss, and their background was not as deep as this young Master Bao's. 1 million, this grass is mine. Lu Dachang said casually. The white-bearded old man looked around the crowd, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. After waiting for a long time, no one dared to bid, and finally he could only settle this farce and say, 1 million, deal. Lu Dachang laughed proudly, but Bao Zhuoliang wanted to cry, but no tears came out. What did it mean to go for wool and come home shorn? What did it mean to lose one's wife and one's soldiers? This was a F** King, living portrayal of his current situation. Hee, such a good stock of yuan, raising demon golden grass was auctioned off at the base price. This time he really suffered a big loss. Lin Yi smiled and glanced at the aggrieved Bao Zhuoliang. Yuan raising demon golden grass was a type of natural treasure, and the rarer it was, the more expensive it was. Normally, there was no clear price, and it could only be seen in large-scale auctions. Every time, the price depended on how many people fought for it, but no matter what, 1 million spirit jade was definitely a loss. In the past, even if the price wasn't raised to 8 million spirit jade, it definitely wouldn't be lower than 2 or 3 million spirit jade. Just like Bao Zhuoliang this time, he was forced to close the deal at the base price, and it was basically half sold and half given away. Chapter 48-54. Oh, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Although Bao Wuliang was a second-generation cultivator, he didn't take it to heart. After all, with Wang Xingyan's beauty, it would be strange if no one pursued her. Even if Bao Wuliang didn't exist, there would be Zhu Wuliang and Ma Wuliang. Sister Xingyan is right. This Bao Wuliang is not a good person. He often harasses the female students in the academy. I heard that one of them was forced into a corner by him and committed suicide. It's just that his father's background is too powerful, so no one dares to speak up. Huang Xiaotao was also filled with righteous indignation. There's such a thing? No wonder you guys call him Bao Wuliang. You're right. He deserves it. Linny frowned. If it was just a normal spoiled brat, he wouldn't care. However, he couldn't just ignore a scumbag who had no regard for human life, especially one who had designs on Wang Xinyan. However, this was Morningstar City, and Bao Wuliang was the son of City Lord Bao Farah. Even if Linny wanted to take care of him, it wouldn't be easy. He needed the right opportunity. Actually, I feel that there's something fishy about today's incident. Bao Wuliang doesn't lack spiritual jades. Even if he doesn't need such a rare treasure like the Yuan raising demon golden grass, he wouldn't just take it out to auction it, right? Wang Xinyan said thoughtfully, yes, he even tried to use it to trick Sister Xinyan into becoming his cultivation partner. Although he was chased away on the spot, he wouldn't sell it just like that, right? Huang Xiaotao shook her head. This thing was a fatal temptation to any original soul stage cultivator. With Bao Zhuliang's womanizing personality, even if he lost to Wang Xinyan, he would definitely use it on other female students. How could he be willing to auction it? Was it really for the spiritual jades? The son of the city, Lord of Morning Star City, would actually sell such a treasure for some spiritual jades? Was that even possible? Hearing this, Lin Yi also came to a realization. When he thought about how this guy seemed to be staring at him throughout the entire auction, he suddenly felt that things weren't as simple as they seemed. It would be understandable if he was staring at Wang Xinyan, but if he was staring at him, this was a big problem. Could it be that this fellow was coming for him? The thought flashed through Lin Yi's mind. They didn't know each other, but it wasn't impossible for them to be enemies because of Wang Xinyan, especially with the sudden appearance of Lu Dachang, a mountain opening stage powerhouse. It wouldn't make sense to say that there wasn't something going on behind the scenes. Looks like I really have to pay more attention to this guy in the future. Lin Yi gave Bao Zhuliang a meaningful look. Although it was just a speculation, the more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Moreover, his intuition had always been very accurate. After Lu Dachang's farce, the rest of the auction was much calmer than before. Even if the other bidders didn't lose interest in the least, the absence of Lin Yi's participation and Lu Dachang's absence made it hard for the crowd to keep their spirits up. And Lin Yi didn't bid anymore. It wasn't that there weren't any good things, but they were all treasures and tools that were suitable for original soul stage cultivators. Lin Yi didn't really care about them. To him, if he really wanted to get some support tools, it had to be something that could at least deal with mysterious ascending stage cultivators. He didn't even need to look at the others. So from the beginning to the end, Lin Yi only flapped a pair of ghost-eyed eagle king wings. After that, other than the disturbance caused by the Yuan raising demon golden grass, he just stood there and watched. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao were even more straightforward than him. They just stood there and watched the show. This was actually very normal. All their cultivation resources were personally prepared by the divine Nun of the Eastern Sea. They didn't need to worry about it at all. Also, the divine Nun of the Eastern Sea emphasized on cultivating the mind and self-improvement. Therefore, other than the necessary support tools for breakthroughs, they rarely relied on external items. After the auction ended, Lin Yi didn't go to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Instead, he accompanied Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao back to the Morningstar Academy. He was now living in the East Sea Pavilion, and this was personally requested by the divine Nun of the Eastern Sea. Of course, he couldn't ask for more. However, before they could walk out of the first floor of the Morningstar Academy, Lu Dachang had already caught up with them. He couldn't wait to hand over the Yuan raising demon golden grass to Lin Yi. After that, he complimented Lin Yi again and again. Only then did he leave with a satisfied smile. This guy is so unreasonable and shameless. He's clearly an opening stage powerhouse, but his every move has the temperament and slyness of a nobody. He's quite an interesting person. Lin Yi couldn't help but smile as he looked at Lu Dachang's back. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao covered their mouths and laughed. Only Lin Yi could deal with this kind of shameless powerhouse with a few words. If it were anyone else, it would be a headache. Bao Wuliang was a living example. The three of them returned to the East Sea Pavilion. After dinner, the two girls followed the godly nun of the East Sea to their evening classes. 2 classes in the morning and 1 in the evening were common practice. Lin Yi also returned to his room, but he didn't cultivate. Instead, he took out the ghost-eyed Eagle King's wings that he'd bought during the day. "Senior, why did you ask me to buy this thing?" Lin Yi thought for a long time, but he still couldn't figure it out. He could only ask the ghost-eyed thing for advice. "Hee, aren't your eyes pretty good? Even you can't figure it out." The ghost-eyed thing kept Lin Yi in suspense. "I really can't figure it out. It's useless for refining pills, and it's not even good for forging weapons. It looks like it can only be used as an exhibition item." Lin Yi shook his head. "Exhibition item? Hee. The ghost-eyed Eagle King is a super enhanced version of the ghost-eyed Golden Eagle. Even the ghost-eyed Golden Eagle has a body full of treasures. Do you really think the wings of the ghost-eyed Eagle King are useless as an exhibition item? I can only give you 4 words. You're really blind." The ghost-eyed thing didn't hold back at all. "That's 4 words. Lin Yi was speechless. "Kid, do you know what kind of existence the ghost-eyed Eagle King is?" The ghost-eyed thing asked. Could it be the king of the ghost-eyed Golden Eagles? Lin Yi guessed based on the name. After all, the ghost-eyed thing had just said that it was a super-enhanced version of the ghost-eyed Golden Eagle. Wrong. The ghost-eyed Eagle King isn't just the king of the ghost-eyed Golden Eagles. It's the king of all eagles. Eagles have always been the king of birds, so it's not an exaggeration to call it the king of flying spiritual beasts. The ghost-eyed thing explained. So fierce? Then what's the vermilion bird? Lin Yi couldn't help but be surprised. He always thought that if there was a king of flying spiritual beasts, the vermilion bird would definitely be the winner. Chapter 48:55. There's such a thing. Lin Yi curled his lips in surprise. Throughout the history of the flying spirit beasts, only the ghost-eyed Eagle King is worthy of being the royal family. However, because of the birth of the king of the spirit beasts, the ghost-eyed Eagle King didn't choose to surrender immediately, so it suffered a disaster. Although it wasn't completely exterminated in the end, the stronger ghost-eyed Eagle Kings were all killed and injured. Only the old and the sick were left. The ghostly thing's tone was a bit sad. What about now? Lin Yi couldn't help but ask. Now, the ghost-eyed Eagle King clan has completely declined. There aren't many pure-blooded ghost-eyed Eagle Kings left in the entire spiritual beast clan. The ghost-eyed Eagle Kings that can be seen now are mostly hybrids between the old, weak, sick, and some ghost-eyed golden eagles. Their strength can't be mentioned in the same breath as the original ghost-eyed Eagle Kings that could dominate an area. The ghost creature curled its lips. If that's the case, then wouldn't the value of the ghost-eyed Eagle King's wings drop a lot? Lin Yi couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. Nonsense. If it's a pure-blooded adult ghost-eyed Eagle King, its strength would be at least at the Earth opening stage. It might even be stronger. It could even compete for the position of the 4 great elders. Who do you think can get their wings? The ghostly thing was immediately amused by Lin Yi's wild imagination. That's strong. Lin Yi couldn't help but be stunned. If it really was an existence of that level, this pair of wings might not even be bought with 30 million spirit jades, let alone 300,000 spirit jades. But these impure ones are much weaker. No matter what, they are still one of the few royal families in the spirit beast clan. At least they used to be royal families, and their numbers are extremely small. To be able to pick this up in this kind of auction, your luck is really indescribable. The ghostly thing couldn't help but sigh. That's because everyone doesn't know. Senior, quickly tell me, what is the use of these wings? Linny asked impatiently. The introduction just now had completely aroused his curiosity, since the ghost-eyed Eagle King had such a great background. He could really look forward to its use. According to the rules of the spirit beasts, I can't tell a human like you about this, the ghostly thing replied after a brief silence. Why? Linny was stunned. The reason is very simple. There are only a few royal families in the spiritual beast clan. Although they are not like the spiritual beast king, who commands all the other spiritual beasts, they still rule over a region. In the words of you humans, they are kings with different surnames. In order to protect them, any information that might harm them is top secret, especially this kind of information that involves their lives. Once the news gets out, I reckon that you human cultivators will start hunting the ghost-eyed Eagle King. Wantonly, the ghostly thing said solemnly. That's true. Lin deeply agreed with this. Currently, no one knew what the ghost-eyed Eagle King's wings were used for. They thought that they could only be used as decorations, so they could not be bothered to specifically hunt and kill them. At most, they would accidentally kill a few. However, once they knew that this thing was very useful, the situation would be very different. Not to mention that the ghost-eyed Eagle King had long since declined. Even when they were at their peak, they could only accept death when faced with endless human experts. Unless they escaped to their base camp in the South Continent and never came out, they would be exterminated at any time. These royal families are the backbone of the various branches of the spiritual beast clan. If something happens to them, the spiritual beast clan will definitely suffer a great loss. So this is top secret. The ghostly thing paused, then suddenly changed its tone and said, however, the ghost-eyed Eagle King is at most a fake royal family. Now, that all the flying spiritual beasts follow the vermilion bird, it doesn't matter if they are exterminated or not. Who knows, the vermilion bird might even be happy. Lin was speechless when he heard this. After the ghostly thing had said so much, he thought that it would be very principled to keep the secret. It turned out that, in the end, it was still prepared to sell the ghost-eyed Eagle King's clan. Its moral integrity was shattered to the ground. We advance and retreat together. You can't be considered an outsider, so there's no harm in telling you this as long as you don't spread it around. Otherwise, it will make it seem like I sold the ghost-eyed Eagle King. Who knows, I might feel guilty. The ghostly thing continued. If you really felt guilty, you wouldn't have said so much. Lin did not know whether to laugh or cry. He could only say, my mouth has always been very tight. It's not like you don't know, Senior. Just say it quickly. Hee, do you want to be a birdman? The ghostly thing did not answer and asked instead, Birdman? What do you mean? Lin was stunned again. He looked at the ghost-eyed Eagle King's wings in his hand before he reacted. Senior, you can't be thinking of making me carry this thing on my back, right? That style is too flashy, but can it fly? Thinking of this, Lin Yi's heart was burning. Flying was definitely the dream of all humans, and it was a fantasy that was difficult to reach. Even with Lin Yi's powerful strength in the late nascent soul stage, it could only be a dream. At most, he could use the true energy jet to glide a certain distance. That was not called flying at all. It was simply throwing himself out, nothing more. Of course not. The ghostly thing's answer made Lin Yi's heart cold, but then his eyes lit up. But it can increase your speed by a lot. Really? Lin Yi's spirit was lifted. Ever since he developed the Super Butterfly Micro-Step and the Super Extreme Butterfly Micro-Step, he was very satisfied with his speed. But last time, he was chased by the Shishan powerhouse. which suddenly made him feel a sense of crisis. The Shishan powerhouse was just a mysterious ascension late stage, and he already couldn't get rid of him. If he encountered a powerhouse of the mountain opening stage, like the Shishan Old Master, wouldn't he still be crushed to death in minutes? What was the difference from the original? Lin Yi's speed was already fast. If he could be faster, he might even be able to survive under the hands of the powerhouses of the mountain opening stage. That was really a heaven-defying speed. Lin Yi couldn't wait to put on the ghost-eyed Eagle King's wings, but when he carried them on his back, there was no effect at all. Instead, his speed was slowed down a lot because of the increased resistance. Wasn't this a trap? The ghostly thing watched with interest for a long time until Lin Yi found out that something was wrong. Finally, it said faintly, "Who told you that this thing is useful to carry on your back?" If it was so simple, then wouldn't it be a fart secret if everyone knew about it? Lin Yi suddenly blushed. Chapter 48, 56. Ghostly Speed Wings? Isn't that a divine tool for escaping? Lin Yi's eyes lit up. That's right. I was only able to preserve my life because you ran fast. Last time, a mere West Mountain powerhouse was able to put you in such a difficult position. You're simply too weak. The ghostly thing's tone had already become that of a native of the secular world. All right, Lin Yi sweated and hurriedly asked, "Then how do I refine the ghostly speed wings?" The ghost-eyed Condor King Wing is the main ingredient. The other 6 supplementary ingredients are not easy to find, but with your resources, it shouldn't be too difficult. Only the ghost-eyed Cicada Wing will require some luck, the ghostly thing said after some thought. Ghostly Cicada Wing. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He had heard the King of Rags mention it when he was chatting with him in the past. He could not help but ask, is it the so-called lightest and thinnest invisible cicada wing in the world? That's right. This is the second most important material for the ghostly speed wings. If you can't fuse with its properties, the ghost-eyed Eagle King Wing will only be a burden. It'll be wishful thinking to increase your speed. The ghostly thing confirmed. Lin Yi nodded repeatedly and silently committed the 6 materials to memory. He stowed away the ghost-eye Eagle King's wings and began to cultivate. Only when the sun rose did he emerge from his room. As usual, he ate breakfast with the divine nun of the East Sea and the 2 girls before returning to the Hong Merchants Association alone. "Vice Chairman, you're back." Honest Chai and Chui Mingshan came to welcome him from afar. After experiencing this revival, the 2 of them were already full of admiration for Lin Yi. They were just short of making him an immortal tablet and worshipping him every day. "How is it? How's business these 2 days?" Lin Yi asked with a smile. The answer was obvious. The auction was not over yet, and there were still a series of activities to follow. Under such circumstances, the Hong Merchant Association was almost bursting with people. It was even more crowded than the first pavilion of Morningstar City. After experiencing this revival, the Hong Merchant Association had undoubtedly become the #1 merchant association in the hearts of the citizens of Morningstar City. Naturally, business was booming. It's so good that it's hard to imagine. Yesterday's turnover was at least equivalent to the past 5 days. Moreover, the Academy also sent in a large batch of orders. Old Chue, and I will be very busy from now on. Honest Chai chuckled. That's a good thing. You 2 go ahead and do what you need to do. Don't worry about me. Lin Yi nodded his head and took out 2 sheets of paper and passed it to Honest Chai. Find an assistant to take a look and try to gather as many ingredients as possible for me. Of these 2 lists, one was the supplementary materials for refining the Vitality Cultivating Pill, and the other was the 6 materials for the ghostly speed wings that the ghostly thing had told him last night. All right. Honest Chai took the list and looked through it. He didn't let his assistant do it, but personally went to gather the ingredients for Lin Yi. He only had what he had today because of Lin Yi, so serving Lin Yi was his #1 priority. Everything else had to be pushed aside. About half an incense's time later, Honest Chai returned with 2 assistants, each carrying a box. Vice President, the other ingredients have been prepared, except for the ghost cicada wings. Should I go out and ask around? Honest Chai asked carefully. There's no rush. Go do what you need to do, and help me keep an eye on it if there's a chance in the future. Linny shook his head. This was within his expectations. The ghostly thing had said that the ghost cicada wings weren't easy to find, and Mo Wuji wasn't in a hurry to refine the ghostly speed wings. After all, he could only ask the King of Junk for help when he returned to the Northern Island. He didn't have much confidence in his smithing skills. Oh, that's good. Honest Chai nodded his head. He was currently extremely busy, and if he were to go around asking around for Lin Yi's matter, even if he was willing, he would definitely suffer a great loss. Lin Yi took the box from the assistant's hands and inspected the ingredients. Honest Chai had indeed put in a lot of effort. These were all high-quality ingredients. Even if they weren't the main ingredients, if the supplementary ingredients were too inferior, it would affect both alchemy and smithing, and vice versa. Honest Chai had already turned around and walked out of the room, but after a while, he suddenly turned back and patted his head with a sheepish smile. Vice President, look at my bad memory. I've been so busy that I almost forgot about such an important matter. What is it? Linny was astonished. It's about the letter you wrote to the Northern Island. I received a reply today. Honest Chai said, as he took out a big sealed envelope. The inside was bulging, and judging from the bulging shape, other than the letter, there should be something else stuffed inside. Oh, so fast? Lin Yi was pleasantly surprised. Even if he borrowed the transportation company's specialized flying spirit beasts, he thought it would take at least 10 days to half a month to reach the Northern Island. He didn't expect it to be so fast. Only a few days had passed. Actually, this is very normal. The transportation company's tamed flying spirit beasts are existences with extreme speed. They are several times faster than ordinary flying spirit beasts. Furthermore, I've specially marked it as urgent. So this speed is within my expectations. Honest Chai smiled. Another reason was that they were able to get a reply so quickly. In addition to the high efficiency of the transportation company, Han Jingjing replied on the spot after receiving the letter. Otherwise, if she had delayed the reply for a few days, it would have been useless no matter how efficient the transportation company was. After Lin Yi received the envelope, Honest Chai immediately retreated out of the room and closed the door behind him. Lin Yi excitedly opened the envelope. Inside was a small stack of paper, and there was actually something similar to a wireless camera and a probe. However, the components were much more complicated than usual. Suppressing the doubts in his heart, Lin Yi unfolded the letter and discovered that it wasn't only Han Jingjing's reply, but also Shanghai Laner's. He couldn't help but smile. Shangguan Laner was purely here to join in the fun, although she had written a lot of nonsense. In fact, none of it was important. Moreover, this girl's train of thought was the kind that broke through the sky. She was talking bad about her grandfather in one sentence, and in the next sentence, she was comparing her chest size with Han Jingjing. Fortunately, she was not born in the secular world. Otherwise, with her writing level, she would definitely get a 0. In contrast, Han Jingjing's reply was much more organized. First, she talked about her encounter after arriving at the Northern Island. Because of Shanghai Laner's existence, she naturally wouldn't encounter any trouble. Moreover, she moved into Hualan residence, so Lin Yi didn't have to worry about her being harassed. Chapter 48, 57. After introducing the new life in the North Island, Han Jingjing began to answer Lin Yi's question, but she did not answer it directly. In fact, as Lin Yi expected, she could not answer it directly at all. It was difficult for others to answer Qing Danzi's question, except for the legendary profound stage alchemist. However, Han Jingjing was indeed a genius in science. Although she couldn't give a direct answer, she came up with a unique solution. It was the set of wireless cameras and probes that had been sent over. Its full name was Alchemy Artifact Peripherals. In fact, it was a coincidence for Lin Yi. Since the last time she upgraded Lin Yi's magical pesticide cauldron, Han Jingjing had the idea of making an auxiliary peripheral, but at that time she had been with Lin Yi and had no time. After arriving at the North Island, she took the time to make it, and this time it came in handy. Although this alchemy artifact peripherals looked very delicate and complicated, it was actually very simple to use. It could be connected to the tablet computer on the magical pesticide cauldron through Bluetooth, and then a series of idiot-like operations followed. After installing its attached program, it only needed to install the probe on the corresponding alchemy furnace. This alchemy furnace could be either the magical pesticide cauldron or other alchemy furnaces. Then this group of alchemy artifact peripherals could transmit all the alchemy information it monitored to the tablet computer. Through its own program, it could conduct an all-round analysis so that it could know the defects and causes of failure in the alchemy process. The whole principle was very simple. It was to monitor and analyze so that it could better assist alchemy. Han Jingjing downplayed the design process in the letter, but Lin Yi was shocked by her again. This was a small matter for Han Jingjing, but for others, it was simply a dream. Of course, in addition to Han Jingjing's genius, being able to make this alchemy artifact peripheral was also largely due to the existence of the Central Chamber of Commerce. Otherwise, if she couldn't get these sophisticated electronic components, no matter how awesome Han Jingjing's idea was, it would be useless. After reading the letter, Lin Yi couldn't help but be overjoyed. After all, Qing Danzi had been delaying for several days without any response. If he continued to delay like this, not to mention whether or not Qing Danzi would have any objections, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to live with himself. In any case, Qing Danzi had already become his apprentice. Although the situation was special, he couldn't lead him astray. After exiting the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi immediately went straight to the Morning Star Academy's Qingdan Pavilion. As expected, Qing Danzi had long been waiting there with his head raised in anticipation. Because he had just entered the academy, he did not dare to rush Lin Yi. Otherwise, he would have rushed over to ask all sorts of questions. Seeing Lin Yi appear, Qing Danzi was suddenly overjoyed. He didn't even bother to put on his shoes and greeted him with a pair of big bare feet. His attitude was respectful. As a disciple Qing Danzi pays respect to master. To be honest, facing Qing Danzi, Lin Yi still felt a little unreal. He suddenly accepted a 7th grade alchemy master as his apprentice. Who would believe this? However, Qing Danzi was now kneeling respectfully in front of him. No matter how unreal it was still a fact. Lin Yi said directly, "Take me to the alchemy room. Let me see how you do alchemy." Yes. Qing Danzi's eyes suddenly lit up, and he quickly led the way to the alchemy room. Generally speaking, when an alchemy master was refining alchemy, they would rarely allow outsiders to be present. Firstly, they were afraid of being disturbed and affected. And secondly, they needed to keep it a secret. However, Qing Danzi obviously did not have this idea in front of Lin Yi. He was eager for Lin Yi to find out what was wrong with him. Speaking of which, this was the first time that Lin Yi had observed a 7th grade alchemy master refining alchemy at such a close distance. Before he helped Qing Danzi find out the problem, the one who really benefited was his cheap master. This kind of close observation was of great benefit to him. Even if he had the divine armament cauldron, enhancing his own alchemy ability was not a bad thing. Before Qing Danzi officially began, Lin Yi stepped forward and inserted the probe into his alchemy furnace. Qing Danzi was confused. As the Academy's chief alchemist, he had never seen such a thing before. However, since Lin Yi didn't say anything, he didn't dare to say anything. After all, every high-grade alchemist had their own unique tricks. In his eyes, Lin Yi's action could be described as unfathomable. He thought that it was a special method of a mysterious great alchemist, but he didn't understand it. When everything was ready, Qing Danzi suddenly froze. After a long time, he scratched his head and said weakly, "Master, what kind of pill are we going to refine?" "Any pill is fine. As long as it's a 7th grade alchemy master. It's fine as long as it's a 7th grade alchemy master," Lin Yi said indifferently. "Oh, then this disciple will refine a 7th grade Great Recover pill." Qing Danzi immediately took out the corresponding materials from the spirit medicine storage next to him and began to refine the pill in front of Lin Yi. The whole process was very calm. From beginning to end, it was very smooth, giving people the feeling that he was completely at ease. It could be seen that the Academy's chief alchemist was not called for nothing. Qing Danzi really had the strength and confidence to do so. However, at the last moment, when the furnace was about to be opened, a low, muffled sound suddenly came from the alchemy furnace. Qing Danzi's face changed. When he opened the alchemy furnace, it was already charred black. This time, the alchemy was a complete failure. Was it always like this before? Lin Yi asked with a frown. Not really. This situation will happen 3 or 4 times out of 10, and the rest of the time is very normal. This disciple can't figure it out no matter how hard he tries. "Master, what did you see?" Qing Danzi said with a bitter face. If it was a failure every time, then it would be fine. After exploring for a long time, he would eventually be able to find something. But this time, it just didn't work. This was because 6 or 7 out of 10 times would be successful, which meant that there was no problem with the alchemy technique he had mastered. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have such a success rate. But what about the remaining 3 or 4 times? If everyone had this problem, then it would be fine. At least it could be understood as a natural and unavoidable mistake in alchemy. But Lin Yi's absolute success rate was right in front of them. If they continued to think that way, then it would be purely deceiving themselves. I still need to think about this carefully. I'll tell you later. Lin Yi put away the wireless probe and was sent out by Qing Danzi respectfully. However, he didn't go to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Instead, he went to the nearby Donghai Pavilion. At this time, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao were still doing their morning classes. Lin Yi went straight to his room and turned on the tablet on top of the pesticide cauldron. Qing Danzi's alchemy curve and various real-time parameters quickly appeared in front of him. Chapter 48:58. By the way, if there's a comparison, it should be more intuitive. Lin Yi patted his head. It just so happened that he also wanted to refine the vitality enhancement pill, and all the materials were ready, so he did not hesitate to start refining the pill. After the last upgrade, the sacred pesticide cauldron could refine a 7th grade elixir, especially this vitality enhancement pill, which was not difficult to refine among the 7th grade elixirs. 2 hours later, the vitality enhancement pill was fresh out of the cauldron. Lin Yi thought that it would be good if he could refine 5. After all, the Yuan cultivation demon golden grass was estimated to be enough for 5 portions, and this was his first time refining the vitality enhancement pill. However, the final result almost shocked Lin Yi. There were 10 more vitality enhancement pills in the sacred pesticide cauldron, a total of 10, and all of them were of high quality. This wasn't just a 100% success rate, it was a 100% success rate. Fortunately, it was only Lin Yi alone. If Qing Danzi, his disciple, had seen it, his eyes would have probably fallen to the ground, and his worldview and outlook on life would have been completely subverted. However, Lin Yi had long been accustomed to this kind of surprise. After being stunned for a moment, he quickly calmed down. Because of the existence of the sacred pesticide cauldron, plus the Yuan cultivation demon golden grass, and a number of auxiliary materials of high quality, plus good luck, although the overproduction was unexpected. In fact, it was still reasonable. After putting away the 10 vitality enhancement pills, Lin Yi quickly returned his attention to the tablet computer. This surprise was not enough to make him forget about Qing Danzi. After getting the monitoring and analysis results of his refining of the vitality enhancement pill and comparing them with Qing Danzi, Lin Yi could not help but frown again. Although it came from the same software, the two curves and parameters were completely different, and there was no similarity at all. Is it because of the different elixirs? One is the recover pill, and the other is the vitality enhancement pill. The refining process of the two is very different. It is a little difficult to find the source of the problem through this comparison. Lin Yi pondered for a moment and immediately stopped thinking about it. If he wanted a more intuitive and reliable comparison, he could refine a recover pill himself. When the analysis results of Lin Yi's refining recover pill came out, and compared with the analysis results of Qing Danzi, it was really clear at a glance. Both were concocting the 7th rank Great Restore pill, and the curves between the two were almost the same. This was expected, but there were still many differences. The most obvious one was the curve of concocting the pill. One was smooth and flawless, and could be called perfect, while the other was full of ups and downs. But that in and of itself didn't explain the problem. Lin Yi had the armament cauldron, and other than the qi transfer, everything else was controlled by a computer. Naturally, the process was perfect. On the other hand, Qing Danzi had to control it all by himself. No matter how experienced he was, he couldn't control it as perfectly as a computer. It wasn't something that could be forced. Qing Danzi always fails in pill concoction. Could this be the reason? Lin Yi pinched his chin, but then overturned his own thoughts. It shouldn't be, although many of the 7th grade alchemists have problems with Qing Danzi, but not all of them are like this. If this is the reason, then it has become the limit that all alchemists can't overcome. Indeed, the human brain was not a computer after all. A computer could almost perfectly control the refining curve, but those alchemists who rely purely on experience could not do it, even the legendary mysterious rank alchemists. Lin Yi stared at the two alchemy curves and various parameters, and after half an hour, he finally saw something. In addition to the difference in smoothness of the two curves, there was actually a subtle difference. If it was not very careful, even Lin Yi would not be able to notice it at once. The difference was that Lin Yi's refinement curve was smooth from start to finish, with no gaps in between. Qing Danzi's refinement, on the other hand, was different. It looked like a continuous curve at first glance, but if you looked at it 10 times more, you'd see that there would be a gap in between every few changes in the heat. The gap was extremely small, so small that it could be ignored, but they did exist, especially before every change in the fire temperature without exception. It wasn't hard to understand. Actually, Qing Danzi didn't have the cauldron like Lin Yi did, and he had to control everything with his own hands during the process. Every change in the heat involved a series of adjustments, and one wrong step would lead to a series of mistakes. That was why there was a pause in the process. Based on this speculation, Lin Yi compared their respective alchemy parameters, and sure enough, every parameter difference between himself and Qing Danzi appeared after these pauses, sometimes floating up, sometimes floating down. The range was subtle, but it did exist. Strictly speaking, this difference in itself did not necessarily lead to the failure of alchemy, because these parameters were very likely to offset each other after fluctuating up and down. So in the end, there was still a great chance of success. But if luck was bad, these subtle differences did not offset each other, but continued to superimpose up or down. To a certain extent, it would really be offline. There was no doubt that this was the root of Qing Danzi's problem. He had mastered enough alchemy skills, but because of this small habit, the final result of the alchemy was left to luck. As long as his luck was not too bad, there would be no problem, but once his luck was bad, all his efforts would be in vain. Lin Yi immediately went to Qing Dan Pavilion and directly said to Qing Danzi, "I probably know what your problem is." "Really? Master, tell me quickly." Qing Danzi was suddenly surprised and happy. "I noticed that when you were alchemy, you had a not very good little habit, which you may not even have noticed yourself. That is, every time before controlling the fire temperature, you would unconsciously pause to accumulate power. If you can overcome this habit, the whole alchemy process will become more complete and coherent. I believe that whether or not the alchemy will not depend on luck," Lin Yi suggested. "Little habit. Pause to accumulate power." When Qing Danzi heard this, he could not help but frown and fall into deep thought. Indeed, as Lin Yi said, even he himself did not notice this, because this little habit had gradually developed since he began learning alchemy at the age of 10, almost becoming a natural instinct. He himself was not aware of it at all. "Yes, you should refine the recover pill again. Pay attention to it," Lin Yi said. Chapter 48, 59. His talent in alchemy was far above the average alchemist. As long as Lin Yi gave him a few pointers, he would immediately be enlightened. In Qing Danzi's heart, Lin Yi was already a mystic-level alchemist that could definitely form a complete pill. Now that he had given him a few pointers, his respect for him grew even more. Lin Yi only watched him refine pills once, and he was able to hit the nail on the head. Where else could he find such a brilliant master? Qing Danzi was ecstatic to finally discover his problem. Although this habit was hard to change, as long as he could find the root of the problem, he would be able to find a solution. After thanking Lin Yi again and again, Qing Danzi immediately went into closed-door cultivation. Looking at his crazed expression, it seemed like he would not come out until this problem was solved. Coming out from Qing Dan House, Lin Yi went to the Hong merchant house and asked Honest Chai to find someone to inform Lu Dachang to come and collect the essence cultivating pill. This scoundrel was indeed very concerned about his son's matter, appearing in front of Lin Yi in just half an incense's time. Receiving the essence cultivating pill from Lin Yi's hands, Lu Dachang was instantly overjoyed and said gratefully, "Master Lin's absolute pill is indeed worthy of your reputation. I, little Lu, am really grateful to you." "Don't mention it. Senior Lu is too courteous. Since I received your yuan-raising demon golden grass, I naturally have to give you the essence cultivating pill. It's fair and reasonable." Lin Yi shook his head with a faint smile. "Hee, I, little Lu, know the rules. A mere yuan-raising demon golden grass can be exchanged for a ready-made essence cultivating pill, and it's even of high quality. I'm definitely taking advantage of you." Lu Dachang did not put on any airs in front of Lin Yi. This kind of opening realm alchemist was truly a rare prodigy. Hee, same to you. Lin Yi's advantage was much greater than his opponent's. Lu Dachang only got one essence cultivating pill, while he had 9 left. "Oh, right. Master Lin, are you preparing to become an alchemist?" Lu Dachang suddenly asked. "Yes, that's what I plan to do." Lin Yi was slightly stunned and nodded. There was nothing to deny about this. After all, anyone could guess it. "That's great. Lu also wants to go on the path of a giant. When the time comes, I'll have to trouble Master Lin to take care of me," Lu Dachang said with a smile. Little Lou. Lin, he was stunned again. Yes, little Lou's son. Isn't he little Lou? Lu Da-chang nodded repeatedly. Lin, he was speechless for a while. The thought process of this scoundrel giant was really not something an ordinary person could understand. Seeing the other's face full of anticipation, he could only nod and say, "If there's a chance, I will." Haha, thank you so much. Lu Da-chang was once again deeply grateful. A dignified mountain opening stage powerhouse was actually flattering a late nascent soul stage powerhouse. In this world, perhaps only he would do such a thing. What made people speechless was that this fellow still acted as if it was a matter of course. He didn't seem forced at all. After sending Lu Da-chang, this scoundrel giant, away, Lin returned to the East Sea Pavilion of the Morning Star Academy. At this time, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao were looking for him everywhere. Where did you go? The two girls saw Lin Yi and immediately greeted him happily. I went to the Hong Chamber of Commerce to help Qin Danzi solve a small problem. Lin Yi smiled and said, "Oh, right, where are we going to play today?" Huang Xiaotao asked. Apart from the morning and evening classes, the three of them would stick together and play everywhere. It had already become the main theme these days. Let's not play today. The three of us have important matters to attend to. Lin Yi smiled and kept them in suspense. He brought the two girls to his room and said, "I have already refined the vitality-raising pill. There are a total of 10 pills. I gave one to Lu Da-chang, so I still have 9 left." 10. Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao exclaimed at the same time. They knew that there were at most 5 portions of the vitality-raising demon golden grass. Even if it was an absolute pill, it would not be so exaggerated. This was double the amount. Hee, I can only say that my luck is not bad this time. Lin Yi smiled unconcernedly. He then said seriously, "The path to becoming a magnate in 3 months. All 3 of us will be participating. So these 9 vitality-raising pills are like charcoal in snowy weather. They came at the right time." Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao looked at each other. Lin Yi had already mentioned this at the auction. They believed that Lin Yi had the ability to do this, but they hadn't thought about the difficulty of it. They only knew that it would be heaven-defying. But now that there were 9 vitality-raising pills, the difficulty had dropped a lot. After all, 1 pill could directly increase one's strength by 1 level. I've calculated it. In theory, only 6 essence-nourishing pills are needed to push a master at the early stage of nascent soul to the perfected level. If we include the possibility of resistance, 7 essence-nourishing pills should be enough. After all, these are all high-quality pills. The effect shouldn't be a problem. Lin Yi analyzed to the 2 girls. Yes. The 2 nodded. Lin Yi had the most say in this matter. He was the most experienced alchemist. Even amateurs like Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao had heard of the pill's effects. It was rare for there to be a resistance to the pill, which meant that the effects wouldn't drop all of a sudden, even if it was used continuously. Otherwise, people wouldn't be so obsessed with it. So as long as Xiaotao can condense her nascent soul as soon as possible, she can easily reach full-stage nascent soul with these 7 vitality-raising pills. She just needs to consolidate her strength after that. Lin Yi paused for a moment before turning to Xinyan. As for the other 2 pills, I'll give them to you, Xinyan. You look like you're on the verge of breaking through, aren't you? That's right. If I meditate, I should be able to break through in 10 days. Wang Xinyan nodded. She was now in the middle stage of nascent soul. After breaking through, she would be at the peak of nascent soul, 1 step closer to full-stage nascent soul. That's perfect. After you break through, take these 2 vitality-raising pills, and you'll be able to reach the peak of nascent soul. There's still 3 months left. With your spongy body, you still have a chance of breaking through. Linny couldn't help but be excited. Sinyan hesitated. Actually, Master's already prepared a special training for me, and he's prepared a bunch of resources for me. Even without these pills, I'd still have a chance of breaking through to nascent soul perfection in 3 months. Maybe you should keep it for now? Chapter 48:60. Now, the divine nun of the Eastern Sea was finally getting serious. Once she forced out the limits of her spongy body, it would be unimaginable. In comparison, it would be more difficult for Lin Yi to reach great perfection in such a short amount of time. After all, he was only at late nascent soul right now. If he did not rely on soul-nourishing pills, he would have to break through 2 levels, which was completely unrealistic. Have you forgotten what we do in the secular world? Lin Yi's lips curled. You mean? Wang Xinyan's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. Her long eyelashes trembled, and only then did she blush slightly. You hold me and cultivate? That's right. Linny nodded. His strength could increase rapidly if he cultivated with Wang Xinyan, coupled with his already heaven-defying rate of cultivation. Breaking through 2 levels in 3 months was not a dream at all. It was completely possible. Oh, all right. Wang Xinyan nodded quietly with a blushing face. She could not help but feel a little eager inside. To be honest, she rather missed the feeling of cultivating with Lin Yi. Unfortunately, she was so far away from Lin Yi that they could only meet in dreams. Now that she finally had the chance to relive it, she obviously would not turn it down. She could not even wait to feel the sweetness of it. If you and I cultivate together, and we have 2 soul-nourishing pills in reserve, we have at least a 90% chance of reaching great perfection in 3 months. Let's just wait for the day when we become giants together. Lin Yi smiled confidently. It was all thanks to Wang Xinyan's presence. If it were anyone else, he wouldn't be so confident. He might even have to think of a way to get a few more qi fostering pills. When she heard about cultivating together, Huang Xiaotao's eyes could not help but light up. It was just a pity that she did not have a spongy body like Wang Xinyan, and her strength was far too lacking compared to Lin Yi's right now, so she could only think about it. After settling Wang Xinyan down, Lin Yi turned to Huang Xiaotao and said, "As for you, let's put the 7 soul-nourishing pills aside for now. I'll help you reach great perfection of golden core first." Oh, Huang Xiaotao responded subconsciously. After a while, her face suddenly turned red, and she said, That means I have to take off my clothes. She had experienced this kind of thing once. When she was in the North Island, it was Lin Yi who personally raised her strength to the peak of foundation establishment. And then she could try for the perfect gold elixir. This was the 2nd time, so she was familiar with it. But Huang Xiaotao was still too shy to raise her head. She was just envious that Xinyan could train with Lin Yi, and didn't think that she'd be the one to take off her clothes first. Her face was so red that it looked like it was going to drip blood. If it wasn't for the fact that he had important matters to attend to, Lin Yi would have done the 2 girls right there and then. After all, their expressions and demeanor were too alluring, and even with Lin Yi's self-control, he couldn't handle it, especially when Huang Xiaotao took off her clothes one by one in front of him until she was completely naked. Lin Yi almost vomited blood when he saw that. In the end, Lin Yi spent a lot of perseverance to calm his breathing. According to his previous plan, he raised Huang Xiaotao's strength to the peak of gold elixir realm. Directly raising people's strength was still applicable to Lin Yi in the heavenly Tao realm, but he didn't want to reveal it easily, unless it was a special situation. If it was an ordinary follower, Even if their strength was temporarily low, Lin Yi wouldn't directly raise their strength. After all, it was easy to become dependent on them. Even if they were in the same realm, if they really fought, they would definitely rely on themselves to break through and become stronger. At most, Lin Yi would provide them with elixirs. Huang Xiaotao and Shanghai Laner were exceptions. Back in the North Island, he raised her strength because the intersect competition was imminent. Not only did he have to face Su Lingchong and company, but he also had to deal with the rules of the duo challenge. Lin Yi needed Huang Xiaotao to quickly attain the perfect gold elixir realm and join forces with him to fight the enemy, so he had no other choice. As for Shanghai Laner, she was purely freeloading experience. It was basically impossible for her to cultivate by herself. It was the same now. The path to becoming a powerhouse was right in front of him. Lin Yi didn't feel at ease leaving Huang Xiaotao alone in the future. Instead of that, he might as well risk it now. At least they could take care of each other, and there wouldn't be any danger to their lives. As the improvement this time wasn't huge, Lin Yi quickly raised Huang Xiaotao's strength to the limits of the perfected golden core. He didn't stop until she touched the final barrier. The whole process was naturally full of charm and temptation. Fortunately, Lin Yi's willpower was strong enough. Otherwise, he would really fail at the last step, and that would be a joke. What Huang Xiaotao needed to do next was to take the nascent condensation golden elixir. Of course, Lin Yi also prepared a large basin of star ink milk for her. She had a perfect gold elixir realm. Now that she had this opportunity, she naturally wanted to follow in Lin Yi's footsteps and achieve the strongest nascent soul. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan looked at each other and left the room. The crucial step of condensing the nascent soul could only rely on Huang Xiaotao herself. Lin Yi couldn't help much. No matter how heaven-defying his ability was, it was impossible for him to do such a thing for her. "It's our turn next," Lin Yi said to the blushing Wang Xinyan. He had already given Huang Xiaotao 7 soul nurturing pills. As long as she could condense a nascent soul successfully, she could use the pills to advance all the way to the great perfection of nascent soul. Should I tell Master?" Wang Xinyan said with a blushing face. "Of course. Didn't you say she's prepared special training for you?" Lin Yi nodded. He could not avoid the divine nun of the East Sea for this matter, but it was rather awkward for a girl like Wang Xinyan to say it. In order to cultivate with Lin Yi, Wang Xinyan had thrown caution to the wind. She ran to the divine nun of the East Sea and stammered a bunch of things with a blushing face, but she failed to make it clear, seeing how the divine nun of the East Sea was still confused. Lin Yi could only stand forward helplessly. He cut to the chase and said, "Senior, Xinyan wants us to dual cultivate together." Dual cultivate? The divine nun of the East Sea's eyelids immediately twitched. She stared at Wang Xinyan in disbelief and was left speechless for quite a while. She had known that her 2 precious disciples had an ambiguous relationship with Lin Yi a long time ago, but she had never stopped them as their master. Instead, she seemed to be going with the flow. Otherwise, she would not have let Lin Yi stay in the East Sea Pavilion. He was already being treated like one of them. Chapter 48:61. She would rather tear down 10 temples than ruin a marriage. Being together was the pursuit of all infatuated men and women in the world, as well as her best wishes for Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao. But even with that being the case, the divine nun of the East Sea had never thought that Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan had already progressed to such a level. She could not help but shake her head and sigh to herself. Actually, we did that back in the secular world. Wang Xinyan dared not raise her head to look at her master. She lowered her head and poked at her fingers as she whispered like a mosquito, her face bright red. The divine nun of the East Sea was stunned for quite a while before finally accepting reality with a bitter smile. After all, she had been prepared for this a long time ago. She just never thought it would happen so quickly. Of course, she had misunderstood. Wang Xinyan was talking about cultivating together. Clearly, the divine nun of the East Sea had mistaken it for something else. Fair enough. Yen, your spongy body is indeed more suitable for dual cultivation. It's just that you never had the conditions in the past, so it's not convenient for me to say too much. This is good. The divine nun of the East Sea looked at Lin Yi and said gently, "Treat Yen well in the future. Don't let her down. Don't worry, Senior." Lin nodded firmly. Before he knew it, he had already grasped Wang Xinyan's hand. Their fingers intertwined as they looked at each other and smiled. "All right, then come with me." With that, the divine nun of the East Sea immediately stood up and led the two of them to the door of an underground room. She turned around and said, "Originally, this was just a special training for Yen alone. Although it's been changed to dual cultivation with the two of you now, it won't affect much. It'll only make your cultivation speed faster. The most important thing is to stabilize your minds. Don't advance recklessly because of your greed. You must remember that." "Thank you for your guidance, Senior." Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan looked at each other and nodded. "All right, go in. If anything happens, get Yen to tear open the emergency talisman. I'll come as soon as possible," the divine nun of the East Sea warned. Yes, the two of them sucked in a deep breath at the same time and immediately pushed open the door. Just when they were about to enter the room, the divine nun of the East Sea suddenly asked with some hesitation, "Is Xiao Tao with you as well?" Linny was stunned for a moment, but then he nodded. Although he and Xiao Tao weren't dual cultivators, they had already seen each other with sincerity, so there was nothing to deny. "You young people should at least observe some ancient etiquette." The divine nun of the East Sea could not help but let out another bitter smile. She glanced at Lin Yi with mixed feelings and drifted away with a sigh. "Though it sure is nice to be young." Listening to the divine nun of the Eastern Sea's last words, Lin Yi turned to Wang Xinyan and smiled. "I think Senior Donghai is also a person with a story. She must have been very interesting when she was young. Only after experiencing the world of mortals can she see through it. Perhaps we've evoked her memories. I'm not sure about that. Master never mentioned anything before she became a monk." Xinyan stuck her tongue out cutely. She and Lin Yi were the only two left here, and she couldn't help but feel a little nervous. The secret underground room was not large, only around 30 square meters in size. It seemed ordinary, without anything special about it. However, as soon as Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan took the first step in, their expressions immediately changed. An incomparably tremendous pressure came from all directions. Every second that he spent in this secret room, his body and Yuan Shen were both going through an arduous double test. There was basically no need for him to deliberately cultivate. Just staying here was already a rare form of tempering. As for the spiritual qi, it was several hundred or even 1,000 times denser than outside. It was even more exaggerated than in Lin Yi's jade pendant space. It felt so dense that it was almost tangible. Senior Donghai has really gone all out this time. Lin Yi turned around and smiled at Wang Xinyan, only to discover that her expression was extremely unnatural right now. It seemed like she was barely holding it together. If it was just the density of the spiritual qi, then so be it. Most importantly, the pressure was just too startling. At the very least, it was no weaker than the Foundation establishment giants that Lin Yi had encountered in the past. Even Lin Yi found it rather difficult, let alone Wang Xinyan, who was only at mid-soul nascent soul. Lin Yi had no idea how the divine nun of the East Sea had done it, but he was certain that not only did it take tremendous amounts of precious resources to create such a formation, but it also required the corresponding tricks and techniques. Only a foundation establishment giant, like the divine nun of the East Sea, could do something like that. Are you all right? Lin Yi helped Wang Xinyan sit down in a hurry. I'm fine. I can hold on. It's no problem. Wang Xinyan smiled with difficulty. Determination filled her eyes. If she wanted to break through quickly in 3 short months, this was something she had to face. All right then. If there are any problems, tell me as soon as possible. I know you have a tough personality, but if you force yourself too much, it'll be as bad as not doing enough. You understand? Lin Yi warned. Apart from allowing her to absorb water like a sponge and increase her strength quickly, the sponge body also possessed the characteristics of a spring. The tighter it was pressed, the higher it would bounce. The divine nun of the East Sea had specially set up such a high-pressure environment precisely to force out Wang Xinyan's potential. Lin Yi obviously would not ruin her good intentions just because of a little heartache. Yeah, there's not much time. Let's begin. Wang Xinyan forced a smile. Apart from the strain on her face, there was also a hint of temptation, which made Lin Yi's heart heat up. He almost turned into a beast. Huang Xiaotao was in closed-door training. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan were also in closed-door training. However, there was someone outside who was constantly thinking about them. It wasn't a friend or family, but Bao Zhuoliang, their new nemesis. There hadn't been any conflict, and they hadn't even met formally. But because of Wang Xinyan, he had become a thorn in the side of the young city lord of Morningstar City. The saying that the tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind wasn't false at all. Lin Yi and the others hadn't come out for a long time. It was obvious that they were in closed-door training. Bao Zhuoliang saw this and hated it. It was because Lin Yi had chosen Donghai Pavilion as the location for his closed-door training that the young city lord could only watch from afar. If it were anywhere else, he would have come knocking on their door with all kinds of schemes. What should we do? We can't go on like this, can we? We can't just let that brat have his fun, can we? Bao Zhuoliang was so anxious that his eyes were bloodshot. In comparison, he would rather see Lin Yi and the others fooling around. Although it was disgusting, it wouldn't be too excessive in broad daylight. But now Lin Yi and his sweetheart, Wang Xinyan, were both hiding in Donghai Pavilion. Who knew what they were doing? If the two of them were to have sex in their closed-door training, Bao Zhuoliang wouldn't be able to do anything. Chapter 48, 62. Bao Zhuoliang was unwilling, but what was the use of being unwilling? He wouldn't break into the Donghai Pavilion even if he had 10 guts. Master Bao, I think you're thinking too much. Su Kexing knew what Bao Zhuoliang was worried about, so he comforted him. Lin Yi may be holed up in the Donghai Pavilion, but with the godly nun of the Eastern Sea watching over him, he wouldn't dare do anything to Wang Xinyan. Don't worry. Lin Yi would laugh himself to death if he heard this. He wouldn't do anything to Wang Xinyan, but the godly nun of the Eastern Sea was the one who sent them there herself. Bao Zhuoliang, on the other hand, was happy with this. He nodded. You're right, but I'm still not satisfied. How dare he pester my Wang Xinyan every day? I'm going to kill him. Don't worry, Master Bao. He may have escaped from the auction last time, but we still have a chance to deal with him. Su Kexing regained his confidence. What chance? Using someone else to do his dirty work. Even that old bastard Lu Dachong was taken care of with just a few words. I don't think it's easy to borrow someone else's knife. Bao Zhuoliang frowned. There's no need to use someone else's knife. We can do it ourselves. Su Kesheng smiled mysteriously. Ah, you're crazy. Bao Zhuliang was shocked. With Lin Yi's background, even if he was Bao Farah's son, he wouldn't dare cause trouble in front of him. Hee, of course we can't do anything in Morningstar City, but what if we leave? Su Kesheng smiled. What do you mean? Bao Zhuliang asked quickly. I wouldn't be sure before this, but since this Lin guy is trying so hard to get his hands on the spirit-raising demon golden grass, he must be trying to make the spirit-raising pill. Considering his strength as a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, his intentions are clear. This Lin guy definitely wants to become a giant. No matter how powerful his background is, it's only in Morningstar City. Once he becomes a giant, he won't be able to do anything. Su Kesheng sneered. Yeah, Bao Zhuliang patted his head excitedly, but soon found that something was wrong. He slapped Su Kesheng and scolded, Fuck off. I value you so much that you can come up with such a stupid plan. If they really want to become giants, at least he and Wang Xinyan will be at the peak of the nascent soul realm. We are only two at the peak of the nascent soul realm, and we are not as good as Wang Xinyan. How can we have the final say? Don't tell me you want to go up and get beaten up. Although he and Su Kesheng were much stronger than ordinary masters of Yuanying realm, Wang Xinyan was recognized as a super genius in the academy. She was almost invincible in the same realm. Bao Zhuliang still had this self-awareness, not to mention there was also Lin Yi who was at Yuanying realm. Young Master Bao, you forgot that we still have a divine weapon in our hands. We can't compare to them in other places, but when we reach the path of giants, the power that this divine weapon can exert is simply unimaginable, not to mention the great perfection of the nascent soul stage. Even the great perfection of the profound ascension stage will be difficult to deal with. Su Kesheng laughed. You mean the lightning guiding banner? Bao Zhuliang's eyes suddenly brightened. He excitedly patted Su Kesheng's shoulder and said, That's right, I almost forgot about this. The lightning guiding banner is useless in other places, but in the path of a tycoon, it is a true divine tool. Yes, this is a treasure passed down from the ancient blacksmiths. As long as it is in a place where the heavenly thunder is dense, it can easily control the thunder. When the time comes, the path of giants will be the best battlefield for us. No matter how strong Wang Xinyan is, she can only obediently be controlled by you, young Master Bao. It will be even easier to kill Lin Yi, Su Kesheng said proudly. Although the chances of triggering a lightning tribulation were much higher in the path of a giant compared to the outside world, it was not certain that they would be able to trigger it every time. To a large extent, it still depended on luck. However, they were different. With the lightning guiding banner in their hands, they could trigger the lightning tribulation at any time. Once they were able to make use of the lightning tribulation, just the thought of the scene was enough to make people shudder. You mean? Bao Zhuliang's eyes lit up. Very simple. When the time comes, we will use the lightning guiding banner to attract all the thunder from the surrounding people to Lin Yi's head, and then we will smash him into pieces. If there is too much thunder, it will be useless even if he has the Xian Thunder Core. No one can withstand so much thunder at once. Su Kesheng laughed coldly. Good plan. We just need to be a little more discreet. And when the time comes, we can kill Lin Yi without anyone knowing, and not even his ashes will be left, and Wang Xinyan won't suspect anything. It's perfect. Ha ha ha. Bao Zhuliang laughed proudly. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye, and in the blink of an eye, the incomparable trial of the path of giants was right in front of them. All the disciples of the Morning Star Academy who were preparing to participate were gathered in the square, and the dean, Ling Yuanqing, personally presided over the ceremony. because the prerequisite to participate in the trial of the path of giants was to be at the great perfection of the nascent soul realm. There were not many people this time, and there were only about 30 people altogether. However, among the crowd, there were 3 people who stood out: Lin Yi, Wang Xinyan, and Huang Xiaotao. One had to know that these people present were already experts at the great perfection of the nascent soul realm, but these 3 people were clearly very far away from the great perfection of the nascent soul realm 3 months ago. So, how did they suddenly all become great perfection of the nascent soul realm? Lin Yi was considered normal. He had the vitality pill, so it was not strange for him to advance from the late nascent soul realm to the great perfection of the nascent soul realm. Wang Xinyan could also understand. She could also get the vitality pill from Lin Yi, and it was rumored that she had a heaven-defying innate physique, so it was not strange for her to advance to the great perfection of the nascent soul realm. But what was the situation with Huang Xiaotao? 3 months ago, she was clearly just an expert at the golden core stage, but now she had become a great perfection of the nascent soul realm. Had the world gone mad? Everyone thought they were seeing things. Even Ling Yuanqing, a great figure at the mountain establishment stage, was no exception. Even the divine nun of the Eastern Sea, who was Huang Xiaotao's master, was shocked when she saw Huang Xiaotao, who had just come out of seclusion. Only when she learned that Huang Xiaotao had used a total of 7 vitality pills did she finally reluctantly accept the reality. And in the end, she could not help but sigh. This was just too exciting. Women of pill refinement masters were indeed different. Damn it, how did even Huang Xiaotao become a great perfection of the nascent soul realm? Bao Zuoliang was speechless. He had been holding back his desire to kill Lin Yi, but suddenly there was Huang Xiaotao. Didn't that mean that the difficulty had increased? After all, Huang Xiaotao had dual fire and wind spiritual roots, so she was also in existence invincible at the same level. Chapter 48, 63. Yes, that's right. Let's let them see how Lin Yi dies. Bao Zuoliang smiled coldly. Ling Yuanqing coughed lightly to attract everyone's attention. Then he said in a clear voice, "Dear disciples, the path of the tyrant trial is about to begin. To be able to participate in this trial means that you are already the most outstanding disciples of my Morningstar Academy. But this is far from enough. Are you all very complacent, thinking that you are the best in the academy? Then let me tell you now, you are not even worth a fart." Everyone's expression changed at the same time, unable to hide the anger on their faces. Even if the other party was the dean, his words were too infuriating. According to the convention, the limit of the strength of a golden stage academy disciple was the great perfection of the nascent soul realm. Normally, those who exceeded this level would not continue to stay, unless it was an exception like Lung Rufin. Therefore, it was not a problem to say that everyone present was the strongest disciple of the Morningstar Academy. But if one really thought that way, it would be a bit like a frog in a well. Humph, don't be unconvinced. The East Continent is not like the other Heaven Stage islands. This is the world of the Magnate Realm experts. Only by stepping into the Profound Ascension stage will you be qualified to touch the barrier of the Magnate Realm. Otherwise, I'll say it again, you are not even worth a fart. Ling Yuanqing looked at everyone and said. This time, everyone was silent. The originally relaxed atmosphere, because of Ling Yuanqing's short words, suddenly became tense, as if a great battle was about to begin. Very good. This is the attitude that my Morningstar Academy disciples should have. Go, work hard. Strive for a few more Profound Ascension stage disciples this year. When the time comes, I will personally send you to the Profound Sea region. Ling Yuanqing encouraged. Yes. Everyone loudly responded. The process was very short. After everyone's morale was aroused, Ling Yuanqing did not continue to talk nonsense. but directly ordered everyone to board the ship and set off. Everyone's final destination this time was the eastern continent's Golden Sea region, the moving Thunder Sea region. There was an independent island called the Moving Thunder Plain Island. That was the legendary path of the tyrant. If they wanted to go to the Thunderous Plains Island, they had to take the Academy's treasured ship. Although Lin Yi was not a disciple of the Morning Star Academy, his identity was special. Even Ling Yuanqing and the other big shots took care of him, so it was not a problem for him to get a spot. After 3 days and 3 nights, the treasured ship finally arrived at its destination. At this time, there were already many battleships and treasured ships docked at the Thunderous Plain Islands Pier, with the insignia of the East Continent's Huangstage Academies hanging on them. Lin Yi took a closer look and quickly found the treasured ships of the Morning Pride Academy and the Soaring Cloud Academy. He suddenly became somewhat excited. Ning Xuefei didn't have this possibility, but this time it was very likely that she would reunite with Hui Yudi because she was also a peak, nascent soul cultivator. In the blink of an eye, a few months had passed, and Lin Yi was still very much looking forward to this unexpected but reasonable reunion. Heroes have a weakness for beauties, and this girl, Hui Yudi, was indeed very attractive. Even Lin Yi, who had many beauties, was no exception. The treasured ship slowly docked, and Lin Yi couldn't wait to get off the ship to look for her, but he was stopped by the Chancellor of the Morning Star Academy. This was an old man with white hair and a youthful face, and he was the leader of the group of disciples from the Morning Star Academy. "Master Lin, you can't go down now," Chancellor Chen Xing hurriedly advised. He didn't dare to be disrespectful to Lin Yi, not to mention that the 3 big shots of the Academy treated Lin Yi differently. Just the position of the chief alchemist, Qing Danzi, was higher than him. If he offended Lin Yi, he wouldn't be able to live a good life in the future. Why is this? Lin Yi couldn't help but be surprised. Beside him, Wang Xinyan and Huang Xiaotao also looked at each other. This was their first time here, and they didn't know the rules here. This is a written rule. Without the permission of the organizer of the trial, no disciple of any academy is allowed to disembark. They have to stay on the ship and wait for the summons, or they will be disqualified, Chancellor Chen Xing explained. "Oh, it's actually so strict." Lin Yi frowned, but after thinking about it, he understood. After all, the path of a big shot was not an ordinary place. If there were no mandatory restrictions, and the disciples of the various academies were allowed to move freely, the scene would definitely be chaotic. There might even be a large-scale massacre, and the situation would be out of control. Yes, this is a helpless action. There wasn't such a rule a long time ago. In the end, after a chaotic battle, all of the Academy's training disciples were annihilated, including a few highly valued super geniuses. Chancellor Chen Xing sighed. "It's that serious?" It wasn't just Lin Yi. Even the other Morning Star disciples were shocked. Annihilation? This was too exaggerated. It's precisely because of that incident that the Golden Step Academy Alliance has learned from that painful experience. That's why they've strictly regulated the path of the giants. Although they don't forbid competition, if it's a large-scale war between academies, then they must nip it in the bud as soon as possible. Forbidding students from entering Thunderous Plains Island before the trial is one of the measures. It's to prevent enmity from forming before the trial even begins. Chancellor Morningstar explained. Everyone nodded. These genius disciples from the various academies were all proud and arrogant, and it would be strange if there were no conflicts if they were allowed to come into contact with them. If someone with ulterior motives provoked them, it could easily turn into a war between academies, and from then on, it would be out of control. Golden Step Academy Alliance. Is this the official organization of the Eastern Continent Academy? Lin Yi asked, This was the first time he'd heard of the Golden Step Academy Alliance. After all, he hadn't been in the Eastern continent for long, and other than his own people like Wang Xinyan, he rarely interacted with outsiders, so he didn't know much about these things. That's right. Other than the president of the Golden Step Academy Alliance, there's also an elder council made up of a number of elders. These elders are the deans of the various Golden Step Academies, and they control the final decisions of all matters in the Golden Step Sea region. They're considered the highest official organization in the Golden Step Sea region. Just like this time, the Path of a Tyrant was personally organized by the Golden Step Academy Alliance, Chancellor Chen Xing explained patiently. The other students already knew about this, but this was the first time Lin Yi heard about it. It was no wonder that although the deans and the city lord were of the same rank in name, it was obvious that the deans were ranked higher. Chapter 48-64. Then, who is the current president of the Professional Alliance? Is he also a dean of a certain academy? Lin Yi continued to ask. The disciples of the other academies also showed expressions of interest because they only knew about the existence of the alliance, but they didn't know the true face of the number one person in the alliance. That's not it. According to the usual practice, the president of the alliance here is sent by the Academy Alliance in the Xuanjia Sea area. He usually doesn't show up, and he has never fought in public, so no one knows his specific strength. Chancellor Chen Xing paused for a moment. Seeing that everyone was curious, he said, "But one thing is for sure. The president of the alliance is definitely above the mountain opening stage. He should be a master of the earth opening stage, or even the sea splitting stage. I heard that he will personally take charge of this trial. Everyone can have a good feel of his strength. Earth opening stage. Even the sea-splitting stage. Everyone was really shocked. Although it was reasonable, as the president of the alliance, he should be higher than the deans of the other academies. Otherwise, how could he convince everyone? But even so, it was still shocking to suddenly hear such a powerful existence. Even Lin Yi, who had seen super existences like the 5-poison flood dragon and the giant electric eel, was no exception. After all, no matter how powerful they were already in the past. The giant electric eel was already dead, and the fate of the 5-poison flood dragon was unknown. Only the legendary president of the alliance was a living existence and a real human cultivator, and it was very likely that they would see him soon. Only this kind of comparison could really make people excited, because it was impossible for Lin Yi to become the next giant electric eel or the 5-poison flood dragon, but it was not wishful thinking for him to become a powerful master of the earth opening stage, or even the sea-splitting stage like the president of the alliance one day. Okay, everyone is clear about the rules. Before receiving my notice, don't disembark without permission, or you will have to bear the consequences. Chancellor Chen Xing warned them, and then his figure flashed off the treasure ship. He was the leader of the academy, so he had to go to the academy in advance to complete the corresponding procedures for everyone. Lin Yi shook his head in a resigned manner as he looked in the direction of Chunjiao and Soaring Cloud Academy. However, due to the distance between them and the fact that there were so many battleships and treasured ships between them, he couldn't see what was going on at all. All he could see was the fluttering flag on top of the battleship. The students of the other academies were either taking a breather or meditating. However, at this time, they certainly did not have the mood to meditate and cultivate. Adjusting their mentality was the most important thing. Everyone remained on the deck. Although they could not disembark, they could more or less experience the environment and atmosphere of the thunderous plain island in advance. At this time, Bao Zhuoliang suddenly stood up and called out to everyone, "Everyone, come here, I have a suggestion." "Young Master Bao, do you have any suggestions?" Seeing this, everyone gathered around him. After all, This fellow was the son of City Lord Bofara, so everyone had to give him some face. Bao Zhuoliang glanced at everyone and said, "Everyone has just heard that the competition on the path of a tyrant is very cruel. Even if it isn't as easy as it was before, there will definitely be some friction between the students of different academies. If we don't form a group and fight on our own, I believe I don't need to say much about the result, right?" Everyone's expression immediately changed. If the other academies also fought on their own, then it would be fine. However, if they formed a group, then they would definitely be at a disadvantage. The competition within the academies was already very cruel, let alone between the academies. Perhaps the word cruel couldn't even describe it. "Young Master Bao, do you mean that we should form a group?" Everyone couldn't help but look at each other. Everyone was a disciple of the Morning Star Academy, so forming a group wasn't unacceptable. However, the problem was, who would they listen to? It should be known that everyone present was a proud and arrogant person, and many of them had enmity with each other. Everyone disliked each other. If they didn't have a strong backbone, let alone fighting with the other academies, they would already be in a state of internal strife. That's right. In order to advance and retreat together, we must elect a leader here. He will be in charge of leading our Morning Star team, and everyone will listen to the leader's every move. Bao Zhuoliang immediately said loudly. At the same time, he deliberately straightened his back and stood in the middle of everyone. His intention was obvious. He had said so much to become the leader. Everyone fell into silence and stared at each other, not saying a word. Although Bao Zhuoliang's words were very reasonable, and the Morning Star team did indeed need a temporary leader, it didn't mean that they were willing to give up. Just as Bao Zhuoliang said, they would listen to the leader's every move. One could imagine the value of this temporary leader. Once they entered the path of a tyrant, they would unknowingly gain a great advantage. Therefore, even if Bao Zhuoliang's background made everyone afraid, it wasn't to the extent that they would bow down to him. No one wanted to give up such a great opportunity. The leader must be able to convince everyone. I think that with young Master Bao's background and strength, he's the most suitable to be the leader of our Morning Star team. Let's see who dares to oppose him. Su Kexing jumped out from the side, decisively. Bao Zhuoliang couldn't just directly recommend himself. That would be too shameless, so he could only borrow his follower's mouth to say this. As soon as he said this, everyone had a strange expression on their faces. There were probably not many people who were truly convinced, but Bao Zhuoliang's background and strength couldn't be underestimated. If they wanted to jump out and oppose him in public, they would have to think it through carefully. However, even if they didn't have the confidence to compete with Bao Zhuoliang, it didn't mean that others didn't have the same. There was no lack of people who could surpass Bao Zhuoliang. At least Wang Xinyan, one of the three fairies, had the qualifications. In the world of cultivation, the strong were always respected. Although Wang Xinyan hadn't been in the academy for long, her super strength was obvious to all. She was invincible among her peers in the academy's competitions. Now that she was at the great perfection of the nascent soul realm, no one present, including Bao Zhuoliang, was her match. In terms of popularity, Wang Xinyan was more popular than Bao Zhuoliang. There was no lack of disciples who had a crush on this third fairy. The only one who could nitpick was that she was a woman. This wasn't the feminist society of West Island. In the end, it was still the men who had the final say. Even if it was third fairy Wang Xinyan who came out to command everyone, it would still make people feel a little weird. If word got out, they might be laughed at by other academies. How would they put their faces when that happened? You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.